Progressive presents Adjusting to the Suburbs. You just bought a home in the suburbs, but no one told you about all the birds, specifically this one, who seems to be calling out Roy. Roy. But who exactly is Roy? And why doesn't he ever respond? Maybe Roy is just bird speak for save with Progressive by bundling your home and auto. I guess until Roy answers, we'll never know. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided in service by affiliates and third-party insurers.
92% of households that start the year with Peloton are still active a year later.
92% because of a bike?
Not just bikes. We also make treadmills and rowers.
Oh, let me guess, for elite athletes only, right?
Nope. It doesn't matter if you're an avid exerciser or new to working out. Peloton can help you achieve your fitness goals. 92% stick with it. So can you. Try Peloton bikes, tread, or row risk-free with a 30-day home trial. New members only. Not available in remote locations. See additional terms at onepeloton.com/home-trial.
The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Hey, what's up? This is Jeff Cobb, and you're listening to Keepin It Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the Ace of Podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we will review Wrestle Kingdom 17 in Yokohama Arena and cover all latest news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. You can support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network or Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get all the podcasts over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store, prowrestlingtees.com/social suplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and clicking on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. This week's episode is brought to you by the NJPW EXT, the only browser extension for NJPWworld.com, frequently updated and with features like dark mode, improved translations and layouts, custom and shared playlists, synchronized viewing parties, and much, much more. It takes NJPW World to the next level. You can visit njpwext.us today for details. Young boy, the world of New Japan does not stop.
It's time for me to do the ceremonial opening of the can and breaking that out. You know why, Jeremy?
Why?
Because we drinking on that Noah pack tonight. Yeah. It tastes good. This is the taste of victory right here.
Oh, man.
Sweet, sweet victory.
Get the cigars out, roll them up. We're smoking on that Congo pack. That Noah pack. Oh, man.
I'd make more jokes, but I don't know enough about the promotion to make jokes about them. But, oh, man. Yeah. 2 years in a row. Back-to-back interpromotional champions. Shinihan.
Pack them boys up. Oh, man. So, yeah, I guess let's talk about it. Yeah, Wrestle Kingdom 17, Yokohama Arena this past Saturday. We got to watch the show over at front of the show, Zach Porter, along with some of the other guys from the Largo Loop. Watched it on a Bima TV.
I'd like to just say, if it didn't happen in the Tokyo Dome, it's not a Wrestle Kingdom, okay? You can market it how you want. You
but
put the
Josh,
branding.
we had the logo and we had the music.
Yeah, the freaking they opened the show with the Wrestle Kingdom music. I'm like, this. I was like, this is not right. That's not the move. But yeah, I'm just gonna affectionately refer to the show as NJPW versus Noah because that's what it was.
Yeah, the big cross promotional show. Like you mentioned, second time in a row that New Japan is doing this show here with Pro Wrestling Noah. And yeah, I mean, overall, I thought it was a pretty fun show. What do you think about it overall?
Overall, I don't know. I have mixed feelings, to be honest with you. Like, the show itself was fine. Like, it was good. I think part of the disappointment for me is the fact that they did call it Wrestle Kingdom. And so when you see something called Wrestle Kingdom, you expect to get Wrestle Kingdom. And it wasn't quite that. You know what I mean? It was like probably a grade beneath that just in terms of quality.
Right. I mean, when you compare it to January 4th, Wrestle Kingdom 17 that we got, like...
There's no comparison.
Right. Like, that was a Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, and it's not even just the quality of the matches itself. It's also sort of like the presentation and the ambiance, the vibe. You know what I mean? And that wasn't really there for this show. What was there was novelty, and this was kind of a novelty-based show. We discussed this last week with Justin, how a lot of fans in the West weren't even really fully aware this was happening or when or what have you. But this seemed to be a big deal, you know, domestically in Japan. And I think that was by design. So there was definitely, but there's some things I didn't like about it. Like the feeling that this really didn't play that much into the overall kayfabe of New Japan or Noah. It's just kind of this, it kind of reminds me of like the Saudi shows, like when they, like it's something that's going on, it's happening, it's a show, you can enjoy it, you can watch it, but like you don't need to actually see it,
right?
To really, you know, because it's the next day that you know Muta bye and New Beginning in Nagoya, like the show keeps rolling. So that was something where I'm kind of a little torn. The other thing too is like, I would prefer for a big show like this that involves both companies that there's more pizzazz, you know, more like ambiance and showmanship. Like I kind of felt like for some of the other bigger like cross promotional shows that New Japan was involved in this past year, like the Stardom crossover or like Forbidden Door. And even those two I felt like could have gone more into what I'm saying. But this one was, it just felt like a New Japan show that Noah guys happened to be showing up at. And aside from like one half of the entrance color being green, you would barely know that this wasn't a New Japan show. I want there to be more, I don't know, just like presentation, the same way that we kind of got at Wrestle Kingdom. And even like the Congo series, like it was good from a match perspective, but like what were the stakes? What was the backstory? Like there just wasn't like that theatrics, that like showmanship that was kind of missing here. And it just kind of left me feeling flat when it was all said and done.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I mean, the show was thrown together. It seems like pre-last minute. Like they kind of have announced that there was going to be a Yokohama Arena show a few months ago, but they never said, hey, it's definitely going to be New Japan Noah again. A lot of people thought it was going to be New Japan and AEW.
Right.
But yeah, it ended up being another cross promotional show with Pro Wrestling Noah. And then we didn't really find out kind of what the deal was going to be until January 4th when you had Congo invading the Tokyo Dome and confronting LIJ during their post-match comments. So yeah, there was kind of a lack of build. And yeah, they did try to heat things up with LIJ invading Pro Wrestling Noah, and then all the interviews with Kano and Kano going to Naito's family's restaurant. But I don't think it was quite enough to fully heat things up. And then, like you're saying, with the whole presentation, I mean, obviously, I thought like the stage and stuff was fine for the arena and for the show, but
right,
overall, it could have been probably done up bigger. There could have been, like I said, more promos, more stakes, more hype, more build into the show that you're labeling a Wrestle Kingdom.
Right, that's exactly what I'm trying to like, without maybe articulating it perfectly, that's what I'm getting at. Like, it just didn't feel, I actually think they did a good job building the Congo LIJ storyline in a short period of time. But once the show was happening, it was just kind of like, even when that series, like, I don't know, there should have been like a huge announcement and like, I don't know, the boys from the back should have been watching. Like, it just should have felt different. And maybe like a face-off where they brought all the competitors out beforehand and I don't know, something. But it was just like, these guys came out, you know, it was just like boom, 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 boom. And when it was all said and done, it was just over. And I was like, that was it. Like, I don't know, this should have felt more special. It just didn't feel special. It just felt like a fun side attraction, like a, you know, like a side quest when you're playing video. You know, you go into the wrong tavern and the lady asks you to go pick up some eggs and you know, or some shit like that, and you're like, all right, I guess I'll go do it just to like get it off the list. But
get some experience points,
get some XP, and then you come back and you're like, all right, well, I did that quest, that's cool, let's move on.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a produce show on steroids.
Yeah, oh, that's the perfect way. Exactly. It felt like a really high-end produce show, which I don't know if you're doing. Maybe that's how they wanted it to be. But for me, New Japan versus Noah, Congo versus LIJ, there just should have been more investment in the production side and the presentation to make it feel more special. Like, as someone who doesn't watch Noah, I know, you know, a few of the names, the bigger stars. I didn't feel like they were presented like top acts, you know what I mean? Aside from the fact of where they're placed in the hierarchy of the show. Obviously, we're going to get to the Okada Kiyomiya moment, which is probably the major talking point of the show and the thing everyone is, you know, has their attentions upon. But I don't know, man. This just didn't feel the way I thought it would. I felt like they could have done a lot more here.
Yeah, especially because they were charging, you know, the additional pay-per-view price either on New Japan World or through Abema TV. This wasn't, you know, free with your normal New Japan World subscription or your Wrestle Universe subscription.
Now, we, like you mentioned, we watched this on the Abema feed. No real complaints. We did think that there was a lot of lag and issues, and we thought it was the Abema feed, but we found out a few minutes before we went on the air that it actually had to do with the way that our friend of the show, Zach Porter, had configured his hardwiring, and he configured it in a way to where it couldn't buffer correctly. So that was the issue. It wasn't the service, it was his setup, which, you know, thanks, Zach. We're watching matches, and like, there's whole segments that were getting clipped like it was a mid 1980s like, you know, wrestling tape. We're like, what the
fuck? yeah, there were some spotty moments, but overall we saw, you know, the whole show. And
right, what we didn't experience though, we didn't get to experience Charlton and Kevin Kelly's commentary, which I heard kind of some mixed reviews about it, that there was it almost kind of felt weird for certain fans because they were very much presenting the Noah guys as like outsiders and kind of like the heels, even when there'd be situations where they're not actually the heels in the match. You know what I mean?
Right. But I mean, to be fair, I mean, it did seem like a mainly New Japan crowd. Most of the New Japan guys were getting cheered.
That's true.
You had a Cerulean Blue. It was labeled Wrestle Kingdom. So in a sense, I mean, it really was like a New Japan show, and you just kind of sprinkled in some Noah for some, you know, extra flavoring.
Yeah, as weird as it sounds, even though on paper this year's show looked more like a New Japan versus Noah show, last year's presentation was much more cross-branded. This one literally just felt like a straight-up New Japan show featuring Noah guys.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's start breaking the card down here. So we'll start with the pre-show. We had two tag matches to open up the pre-show. So the first match, we had both companies' Young Lions in action, and the New Japan Young Lions of Kosei Fujita and Rei Oiwa defeated Taichi Ozawa and Yasutaka Yano 12 minutes and 12 seconds. Fujita getting the Boston Crab win here.
Yeah. Correct me if I don't know if you can recall, but which one was the more seasoned of the two Noah Young Lions?
So Yano.
Ozawa?
Yano. He's the one wearing the blue tights.
Okay. So obviously Fujita and Yano wrestled to a time limit draw the year prior, and there was kind of some old country beef between those two guys here in this match that kind of carried over. Ozawa, very fresh in his career. I don't have the exact number, but from what I recall last week and what I've been told, this is like a handful of his first beginning matches. But he looked really great from a physical standpoint. Very, very impressive physical specimen. And I thought all four guys went out there and had exactly what you would want out of a cross-promotional Young Lion tag team match. Lots of fire, lots of heat. These guys were jazzed up and just kicking the crap out of each other, extremely technically sound, and I enjoyed this. I thought it was a really good tag match.
Yeah, both sets of Young Lions are really laying into each other, really snug action there. Great strikes, a lot of great grappling throughout the match. And like you mentioned, there was heat between Fujita and Yano based off of last year. And all eyes are kind of on Fujita right now, with him being a part of TMDK and being Zack Sabre Jr.'s personal Young Lion. And he got the win here, got the Boston Crab on Ozawa. And then post-match, we saw the continuation of the heat between Fujita and Yano as they traded slaps.
Yeah, so, who knows where that goes. But this match, all in all, was very good. One thing I did like about the show that kind of was presented the prior year, but not always, because there's a lot of matches that involved New Japan and Noah guys last year, and this year felt very much more like New Japan versus Noah, like proper. In many of these matches, there's a lot of heat, and the guys really were like laying into each other and just kind of being a little bit extra stiff, and they kicked the show off really much so in that vein with this match, and I appreciated that.
Yeah. So then after that, we had the tag team match of Daiki Inaba and Masa Kitamiya defeating Oscar Lube and Tomohiro Ishii 10 minutes and 28 seconds.
Another really good pre-show tag team match. You had Kitamiya and Ishii Hoss battle, just, lighting each other up. Lube, trying to make a name for himself and just show all the fire that he can. But Inaba and Kitamiya were able to pick up the win here. And down the closing stretch, what was really interesting was after Lube lost and was ousted from the ring, Ishii had enough of it and was like, all right, I'll take you both on, and tried to fight Inaba and Kitamiya simultaneously.
Yeah.
Ultimately ended up getting beat up by the two of them, rolled out of the ring, and then he got beat up the entire way up
all the way to the rim.
And then they continued to jump that man into the backstage. I'm surprised that he was in any condition to compete in a multi-man tag team match the following evening, because they beat the brakes off that boy.
Yeah. The funny thing would be Ishii is fighting Kitamiya, and then the other guy, Inaba, is trying to attack Ishii, and Ishii's no-selling all of that as he's fighting Masa.
Yeah, it was really interesting. From my understanding, Inaba is a former world champion from Wrestle One and Ace, and obviously that company is defunct. But you would imagine some of these guys that were featured heavily in some of those mid-tier pro-resu promotions might find a better footing. But from what I can tell, he's pretty much a mid-card guy in Noah right now.
Yeah. And Ishii kind of treated him that way all throughout the match, and even its post-match angle, kind of no-selling some of his stuff.
Yeah, he was no-selling everything he did.
But yeah, like you mentioned, Ishii got overwhelmed there and just continued to just get beat all the way to the back. And with that, Noah tied the score. We are 1-1, ending the pre-show. New Japan 1 win, Noah with 1 win. And then with that, they kicked off the main card with a tribute to Jay Briscoe. I'm sure most people know at this point, Jay Briscoe, big Ring of Honor star, first ever 1/3 of the never openweight 6-man champions in New Japan with his brother Mark Briscoe and Toru Yano. Also, IWGP Tag Team Champion with his brother Mark Briscoe. Jay passed away on January 17th in a car accident where another driver crossed the center lane, hit his vehicle head on. It was reported that he wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Daughters were also in the car. There's been some news on them that the daughters are doing better, but just a very terrible loss in the wrestling world. And, Josh, we've been watching wrestling for, about 30 years now, and we've seen several wrestlers pass away way too early. But I don't know, man. Out of all the wrestler deaths in the last few years, this one hit me really hard. I saw the news on the 17th when it happened, the Tony Khan tweet that went out, checked my phone, and I gasped. And my wife was just like, what's going on? And I was literally stunned. Like, I could not believe the news that I was seeing.
Yeah. This is a tough one, man. It's not easy to talk about. I really can't totally pinpoint or put my finger on what it is specifically about the passing of Jay Briscoe that has kind of affected me more than other deaths. And I think we've had some really tough ones the past few years, not to compare and contrast, obviously, because untimely deaths are always a terrible thing. And unfortunately, the wrestling industry is chock full of them. But, a few that have been really difficult over the past years, definitely like Hana Kimura, the passing of Brody Lee, and probably several others. But for some reason, and I've tried to think about a lot of the thoughts I've had about it, but like Jay Briscoe, man, like really fucked me up. Like,
yeah, dude, like, again, like, not to compare, but normally you kind of hear wrestle death, you kind of feel bad, but I don't know, like this one just really hit me in a completely different way. Like, I was gutted. Like, I feel like I've been able, just because we get so many wrestlers death, to kind of handle and manage my emotions. But
yeah,
for this one, I just couldn't. Like, it just hit me with a wave. And especially because we just saw him wrestle last month in one of the best matches of the year, that dog collar match with him and his brother against FTR. Literally on Twitter, he posted a picture 6 hours before the news break of him dying. So it just like literally came out of nowhere. These guys finally got, long-term big deal contracts with the Tony Khan Ring of Honor purchase, and we're going to be featured, all throughout this coming year. And it's just crazy that he's now gone.
I think part of it is that we've always, like, I don't want to overstate it and make it seem like I've always been able to be deep into Ring of Honor, because that's not necessarily the case. But Ring of Honor has been, for me, something that was at the forefront of my fandom at various different periods. And one of the constants of that promotion, like, if you're talking about a Mount Rushmore of the company, like the Briscoe brothers, I would allocate one of the heads to both of them, because that's how instrumental they've been in that company's history. And I mean, for me, one of the times where I was most invested in the company was during that singles run that he had when he broke away and won the world title those couple times. And I think that Jay and Mark didn't necessarily always get a fair shake compared to a lot of their peers. And I mean, obviously a lot of other people who are maybe more articulate have already kind of discussed this in depth, what occurred with the unfortunate tweets and then his kind of road to redemption over the past decade or so. But it kind of still haunted their career, regardless of any apologies or restitutions they tried to make. And they always just kind of seem like the best kept secret from Ring of Honor and from that sort of generation. And I think one of the reasons it has affected me is because as we got older and the Attitude Era ended and 2001, 2002 started like coming around, it was like, well, WWE's kind of getting shitty. There's no WCW. There's no ECW. Like, what am I going to watch? And Ring of Honor, as well as the X Division and TNA, were kind of like those two big things that were occurring kind of simultaneously for a few years there, where it was like,
yeah,
holy crap, like, what is this? This is like, people don't remember, like, those commercials that used to pop up for TNA back in the day were like, the wrestling that they were showing was revolutionary.
Yeah,
like,
it's like, who is this AJ Styles guy doing like a shooting star plancha? Like
they were showing these guys doing stuff that you could not see on WWE, and it was really crazy. And if you think about that generation, sure, there are a few people that have passed, but by and large, most of the major mainstream stars from that movement are mostly still wrestling. If you think about it, you know, Punk, Bryan, Danielson,
Joe,
Samoa Joe, you know, all those guys. And suddenly at a very young age, 38, you know, Jay Briscoe's just gone. And it was so sudden, so unexpected. And then the details that were coming out and everything that with his family and his daughters, and it just really, I don't know, it just messed me up. Like I literally had trouble sleeping the next, like that night when it happened. I only slept like 4 hours, and I'm not even like that kind of guy or whatever, but like I just woke up and I couldn't get back to sleep, and I knew that that's what was bothering me. And I do think it was very good and classy that not just these two companies, but pretty much universally, almost every company across the board went out of their way to pay tribute and honor to Jay Briscoe. And I thought the cool kind of nice touch here was obviously that 07-08 run when Ring of Honor was working with Noah. That's the time he spent with them. And so they had Marufuji in the ring holding a portrait, and it was of Jay from that period. But then when he was with New Japan, that's when Ring of Honor had the working relationship with them. And that was like around 2015, 16, 17, probably up to like 2019. And the picture they had of him was from that period. So they had like the two with Tanahashi holding the portrait. So they had kind of the representation from their two respective companies honoring his time in both of those different brands. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because him and Mark, they were Noah Junior Tag Team Champions, like I mentioned earlier, when he was in New Japan. First ever, you know, part of the first ever Never Six-Man champions, and then also IWGP Tag Team Champion with his brother, Mark Briscoe. So yeah, the tribute here was really nice. Yeah, they did the 10-bell salute, and the ring announcer, you know, announced his name, you know, said, you know, IWGP Tag Team Champion Jay Briscoe, and they played the Reach for the Sky, boys, and played his music. And so that was just a really great moment, a really great tribute to Jay Briscoe.
We'll move on, but I would say if you haven't watched a lot of Jay Briscoe's work, I'd recommend you go back and catch what you can. There's a thread on Twitter where they've listed like over 100 of his matches that are available for free just on YouTube. But even like his promos are outstanding. Like this guy was so underrated for, you know, the level of character and believability and work that he presented. And I don't think he really got his just due or the credit that was deserving to him for what he was putting out there from a in-ring perspective and everything like that. And yeah, I'm gonna miss him. I don't know how to like articulate it correctly here, but it just sucks. It's not cool.
Yeah. Also, New Japan did put all of his matches up for free on NJPW World. So if you want to see a lot of his New Japan action, you can watch it there. And also, like Josh mentioned, check out YouTube. Ring of Honor, I know they've been posting several stuff on their YouTube channel as well. So our thoughts and prayers with Jay Briscoe's family, his brother Mark, Mark's birthday was like the next day after that. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's hard to know what's even gonna happen with him moving forward with his career and everything like that, because these guys are so, I mean, obviously they're like a year apart as brothers and so linked to one another. But you know, the other thing too is I keep thinking about his family and like those girls. They're like in a hospital room trying to recover from like extremely severe injuries and grieving from the loss of their dad, and then everything else that's there with like survivor's guilt. It's not a good situation.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely, yeah, prayers for their family. So kind of hard to move on from that, but we'll try here. So after that great tribute, the show opened up. We had the first matchup on the main card with Hiroshi Tanahashi, Satoshi Kojima, Takashi Sugiura, and Toru Yano. They defeated the team of El Phantasmo, Gato, Kenta, and Marufuji. 12
Just
minutes.
announce them as they are, the Bullet Club.
Well, yes, ELP, Gato, and Kenta are Bullet Club.
And Marufuji.
They did have a Bullet Club shirt for Marufuji during the entrance. He turned it down. Beginning of the match, they were trying to get him to throw up the too sweet and do the traditional, too sweet, but he wasn't having that. He was kind of confused. He's like, I don't know how to do it. Like, he kept like messing around with his hands. Like, I can't do it. I don't know how to do it.
Well, ultimately, that ended up kind of being their undoing for the reason that they lost this match, because they wound up at a situation where Yano was in the ring and Marufuji, I think, had just tagged out. Gato was in there, and they're trying to again get him to do the too sweet. He can't figure it out, quote unquote. People get beat up. Suddenly, the referee's back is turned, and just like I called, Yano low blow, roll up, 1, 2, 3, and Segura Gun gets the win.
Yeah, so fun matchup here. Nice little fun match to open up the show. A lot of fun interactions with some of the guys, and obviously, we're still building to Kenta and Tanahashi. They're having a singles match on this new beginning tour, so got a little heat from them. And of course, there's still heat from them from last year's Wrestle Kingdom, the no DQ match that they had there. So yeah, good matchup there.
Yeah, obviously we're building, like you mentioned, the Tanahashi Kenta stuff, but the only thing that I didn't love about this match is like it's the opener. I kind of expected them to go at maybe a faster, kind of high octane pace, and it wasn't quite that. It was more like a road to 8-man comedy tag sort of situation with like, and I guess we could have probably called that because we have the strange bedfellows with all these different personalities and teams kind of mishmashed one together,
Mm-hmm.
And that definitely played out. And considering some of the guys that were in here, I wanted Kojima and like Kenta to like go at it. I wanted like Marufuji and like Tanahashi to do cool spots, and we just didn't really get that aspect of it. Like, it was definitely fun, but it wasn't like what I thought it could have been considering the guys that were involved.
Yeah. So then following that, the first singles match of the evening, we had El Desperado defeating Yohei 10 minutes and 57 seconds.
This match was good. It got very good down the stretch. I don't have too much to add there. The one thing I did notice, though, the juniors in Noah are a lot smaller than the juniors in New Japan Pro Wrestling, just generally speaking, aside from Tadasuke. But like, I do know that like across the board, like juniors in general, the wrestling industry, there was a time where guys that were like Desperado size were considered super small. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
And someone that was like the size of Macho Man Randy Savage or like Shawn Michaels or Bret Hart was considered like quote unquote a little guy. And nowadays, a lot of top guys like in different companies, like say a Seth Rollins, for example, or Will Ospreay, they're like not bigger than the guys that used to be considered small in the business. So there is a trend where the industry is more open to lighter performers. But New Japan has always kind of maintained this like 220-pound limit, 225. And a lot of top stars in other companies are like 220, 225. And their like cruiserweight limit is like 205. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
And I think that that's kind of showing itself a little bit with the matches between the New Japan juniors and then like the Noah juniors. Like, across the board, they all were way smaller than the quote unquote small guys in New Japan.
Yeah. Yeah, overall, yeah, I thought this match, it was good. I don't really think Yohei really impressed me a whole ton or blew me away.
No.
But it was a fine matchup. Desperado ended up working on his leg throughout the match, which led to him getting the pinche loco, or excuse me, the numero dos towards the end there. That stretch muffler with the grabbing the hands, got a submission, verbal submission victory there. Yohei did have a cool reversal of the pinch or the numero dos. He rolled it into like a cradle. That was pretty cool.
I didn't think either guy really overly impressed, but as far as just a fun little showcase junior match, it was fine. But this definitely didn't have the fire and heat that some of the pre-show tag team matches had.
Right. And we did have a question here from OK890. It says, Yohei impressed me a lot. In the English commentary, kept bringing up a possibility of Yohei in the best of the Super Juniors, with Noah and New Japan seemingly not just being a one-time thing this year. Do you think it's possible Yohei or another Noah Jr. could be in the best of Super Juniors? What Noah Jr. would you have in the best of Super Juniors if you could choose?
Good question. I mean, is there a possibility of this occurring? Sure. Anything's possible, especially this year. There's a lot of crazy things happening in New Japan.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I don't know that I think that is necessarily likely. It's possible, but not necessarily likely. If I had to choose one from New Japan or from Noah, I really couldn't tell you because I probably Ninja Mac. Like, I don't know, and that's just because I don't know enough about the New Japan or the Noah Juniors to give you a definitive answer on that. It's not a company. We don't follow them.
Yeah, I mean, Ninja Mac definitely would be the number one draft pick for me. Second would be a guy we saw in the next match, their current GHC Junior Heavyweight Champion, Amakasa. Amakasa. I'm gonna butcher that.
Or Amaksa, I think that's how they're pronouncing it. I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, he was fun to watch. But yeah, so we'll talk about that match. So yeah, we had Alejandro Amasca and Junta Miyawaki defeating Master Wato, Risuke Taguchi, and Tiger Mask 9 minutes and 37 seconds.
I thought that this was a little bit more spirited and high octane paced than the singles junior match that preceded it. Very impressed with the junior trio from Noah. I thought all three of them were really great. Obviously, for me, the highlight of this match was that sort of mid-rope, Matrix, Fosbury flop, whatever you want.
I don't even know how you really ascribe that.
Yeah, Amakasa does this move where he looks like he's going to hit like an over-the-top rope, dive, but instead he grabs the middle rope and he flips like he's going, like, I don't know, like the way Sami Zayn dives through the ropes, he's doing like a suicide dive, but while he's doing it, he turns his body and it's so crazy. Like, I'm sure many of you have seen the GIFs that are out there. If you haven't, definitely look it up. It's one of the more impressive moves. The margin for error is so small. You could easily, all it takes is a toe clipping the top rope or something.
Yeah.
And he's fucked. Like, when they talk about like high risk, this has got to be one of the most high risk moves I could think of. And it's maybe not quite as flashy as some of the crazy stuff we see, like say Bandito Vikingo doing. But man, the precision that you have to do this, like, I just can't imagine. It's really wild.
Yeah, dude, it was so crazy. Yeah, he was super athletic, and he was doing a lot of these kind of cool, interesting maneuvers, and he ended up getting the win with a spiral tap looking maneuver, and got the win for his team. So that put Noah up 2. So we're at 2-2 at this point between New Japan and Noah. And then after that, we had the match that has everybody talking. The match that has the world of buzz. So we had Kaito Kiyomiya and Yoshiki Inamura going against a no contest against Kazuchika Okada and Togi Makabe.
Well, before you jump into it, Jeremy, let me bring up the 2 talking points that I think most people want to hear about more than anything else. Number 1, Togi Makabe took exactly 1 bump in this match. I saw people saying that this man didn't take no bumps in this match. I counted. Because I didn't know the direction of where this match was going. So I was like, I'm going to do a count meter. And he took one bump, and I was like, one. And another bump never came. So he did officially take one bump. The other thing, Yoshiki Inamura is the lost member of, the new age version of Demolition. This man is like a S&M character. I don't know who decided to put him in that outfit. Last time I saw him, he was looking like a badass in a singlet. Suddenly he's looking like, Axe and the Smasher.
Yeah. Was not sure what he was trying to do with that outfit. Definitely preferred the singlet he had last year when we saw him on this show. But yeah, then from there, you mentioned Makabe taking one bump. Him and Inamura kind of open the match up until they're exchanging strikes, and Inamura gets Makabe down, and then eventually Makabe tags in Okada, and Okada gets Inamura. He has him in a chin lock with his back turned to Kiyomiya. And of course, Kiyomiya's kind of yelling and screaming and trying to get his partner to get out of the hole. And then eventually he comes in the ring and he kicks Okada square right in the face from behind.
Well, before he did that, he kicked Okada like 3 times in the back, and Okada wasn't breaking the hold, and he wasn't even acknowledging him.
Yeah,
he wasn't even like looking at him, and he kind of just had this like grin on his face, like I'm getting under your skin by doing this. And then suddenly, like, boom, the kick heard round the world occurred.
Yeah, I just remember all of us were like, oh my God. Like, it sounded so hard. It was just a stiff kick, and we saw what happened to Okada.
He kicked him so hard.
Yeah, dude, Okada's forehead immediately welted up, was bleeding. And man, that was a really stiff strike. And then from there, we had one of the wildest brawls. Okada was furious, went after this man, and these guys started brawling all throughout the ringside. They were throwing some heavy, stiff shots, and they're trying to pull them apart. The Young Lions are trying to pull them apart, and they would just kind of keep jumping at each other.
Yeah, I mean, because we saw Kiyomiya go right to the apron right after the kick. Like, he walked out satisfied with what he'd accomplished and was standing back on the apron. And then Okada got this look on his face like I probably never seen him have before. Just so much anger and vitriol. And just when he went to like knock this dude off the apron, he walloped him and he hit him like twice. He was like, bah, bah. I was like, oh my God. And then they just went into the most prolonged like breakup segment out, like in the, on the outside of the ring. Like, and the funny thing is like, well, I guess Okada was the legal man, huh?
Yeah, he was, yeah.
They could have easily counted out Okada, but I guess they didn't decide to go that way. But Okada was just hitting this man so hard, and then Kiyomiya like laid into him even harder, and they were just going back and forth. This was so hate-filled and violent that we had people reaching out to us asking us if it was a shoot. Now, obviously, there was like the clear signs that if once you break your sense of disbelief and you pay attention to what's happening, these guys are working. This is what is called, quote unquote, a work. But it was a very, very convincing worked shoot. And I mean, we saw these guys, like, at one point, Okada, like, put him in a guillotine, which I've never seen him do a guillotine before.
And then got in the full mount, was just like, bow, bow, palm striking him right in the face.
Yeah, bro, like in the glory days of Pancrase, like it was 1995, like just freaking smacking this kid. And then
Kiyomiya did that Suzuki one-legged, like, drop kick to the face.
He drop kicked him in the head, and like not like a fake drop kick, but like I don't know if you know Seth Petruzzelli. He was like this MMA fighter that loved pro wrestling, and sometimes kind of like filthy. And sometimes he would break out pro wrestling shit. Like one time he was in an MMA match. He did a flying drop kick to somebody, and that's what that reminded me of. But like he drop kicked the fuck out of Okada, like right in the head. And there was one point where he slapped Okada so hard, and this thing just kept going and going. And like we see a lot in WWE and like AEW specifically, the two big Western companies. You see a lot of like brawling segments, and people rush out and break it up, and then they keep going and blah blah blah. I think the most prominent offender of this is like Jon Moxley. He's in a lot of these, at least in the past year or so. And they kind of almost always suck. This was nothing like that. This did not look like two guys like wailing at each other. This is not something you would set like My Way as the, background song to. Like, this was something like really, really, really violent and kind of crazy. And then when it was all said and done and like Okada was like walking out, they threw the match out, called it a no contest. Like Kiyomiya got on the mic and was like talking about this man being a coward, and he like asked him if he's really just gonna walk away if he doesn't want this fight. Like he's like, bro, you don't want the smoke?
Yeah.
Like it was crazy.
And then
like,
Okada was like, what? Turned around, ran back at him, and kept fighting. It was just a wild, crazy, heated brawl. I have never seen this man Okada so heated.
Here's how crazy it was. We watched it twice back to back. We're like, all right. Now, granted, one of our party members showed up late and they had just missed this. We're like, let's run it back.
Rewind. You need to see this.
And he's like, really? And we're like, yeah, you got to see this. And like this was outstanding. We have a lot of questions.
It's so crazy. This match went 6 minutes and 35 seconds, and when we're looking on Cage Match, it had like a 9. People were giving this like 4.5 stars for this 6-minute no contest match. That's how great this angle was.
Well, I try to tell all you modern fans, sometimes a no contest finish can work, like in the 1980s.
Like you mentioned, yeah, tons of questions here. Hawaiian Punch BV, did a match that went under 10 minutes and ended in a no contest make it into the notebook?
I don't keep a notebook like other wrestling fans, but I really enjoyed it. I'm a little torn because I'm wondering, like, does this qualify for Angle of the Year? Because to me, this almost was more of an angle than it was like a great match. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of consider it an angle. And yeah, for me, like I have a hard time saying, oh yeah, this was a 4.5 star match. Yeah, the angle was incredible, but I don't really think I could really rate this match. So for me,
I could.
What are you rating it?
I'd probably go like 4.5.
Really?
Yeah, because I'm not bogged down by the traditional ideas of what makes a 4.5 star match a 4.5 star match. It doesn't have to fit within the parameters of a certain time constraint. It doesn't have to have the certain ebb and flow. Like, if it makes you feel something and you're entertained, then that's what it is. And like, this was incredible. This was incredible. Yeah,
it was
like
awesome.
When we're talking about like sub 10-minute matches, this is one of the greatest sub 10-minute matches in the history of wrestling. It's right up there with Giant and Haku from Nitro. It's right up there with 1-2-3 Kid versus Owen Hart from King of the Ring. It's up there with Kushida and Hiromu, the match where he got knocked out.
Yeah,
it's up there. And I don't know. Maybe 4.5 is too high, but I fucking loved it.
Yeah,
I thought this was definitely so incredible.
I think it's an incredible moment. I think it's a great angle. It's obviously setting up something bigger, which we'll talk about in a second. But yeah, really, really great moment. This thing's been going around Twitter, the clips and videos. I've seen, one clip had like 1 million views. Like people, like you mentioned, people who normally don't watch New Japan were like, hey, like, can you message me like when you're done with the show? So we got some questions.
We have people that don't watch New Japan hitting us up, and we're like, I thought like some big Westerner star must have shown up on the show, because I was like, we've got like, when they say casuals, I'm talking about real casuals, like people that haven't watched since like Wrestle Kingdom 10 hitting us up being like, yo, so when that show's over, I got some questions. And I was like, oh my God, what happened? Who showed up?
Yeah, I was like, did Monet come out again?
Did CM Punk show up? What's going on?
Oh, man. Yeah, we have a question here from VE30. Says, does Okada being pissed off, was that a work or a shoot?
Probably both, man.
Yeah, he did get
kicked hard.
He got kicked really hard, which that probably helped fuel his anger for this angle. But yeah, clearly they're working. This man, Kiyomiya, hit a German suplex in the middle of this brawl. So yeah.
When? I don't remember. On the cement, right?
It was on the mat. It was on the outside.
Okay, I barely remember that. One of the things too is they're kind of hearkening back to the famous. If you guys are not aware, there was I want to call it an angle, but it wasn't an angle because it was an actual shoot. A work turned into a shoot. But there's a famous match where Akira Maeda, who had been working in the first UW, he was originally part of the dojo, then defected to the original UWF and returned with those guys to New Japan and had been working in New Japan for about a year or so. And Ricky Choshu and his guys returned to the company. And that was going to de-push the UWF shooters. There was a lot of politics going on. It got really precarious. And during a 6-man tag team match, Ricky Choshu, who's one of the biggest stars in Japan, has his opponent in a Scorpion Deathlock, which was his finish. And while he's in the Scorpion Deathlock, Akira Maeda just shoot kicks the fuck out of him so hard, breaks Ricky Choshu's orbital bone. The match ends in a no contest. Madness and chaos ensues. And then most of the UWF guys get ousted and go on to form UWF Reborn, and they never come back to New Japan. And it's actually one of the most I don't want to call it important, but it is kind of, from a historical standpoint, one of the most significant moments in the history of pro wrestling, because it gives rise to all of the shoot style promotions that follow it, and then from there MMA in general. And it's the big split in New Japan at the time. It's a really, 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 really important thing that happened. And I have never seen anybody else try to hearken to that angle or hearken to it using it as an angle. But that's what they did here. They had Kiyomiya shoot kick the fuck out of Okada to elicit the same kind of reaction. And it was extremely effective.
Yeah. Question here from Slam Lord 69. Do you think New Japan are beginning to find their footing with the cross motion / Forbidden Door potential? It feels like between Kenny versus Ospreay and the Okada versus Kaito Kiyomiya interaction, they've struck gold and achieved heightened fan interest in creating scenarios that seem to really be capitalizing on the cross-promotional landscape and the potential that comes with it.
I have to generally agree with you. I think that there's definitely some room for improvement, and in not necessarily with the examples that you cited, because I think they knocked those out of the park, but just from a general standpoint, I think that they could be doing a little bit better. But for the most part, yeah, they've been batting a really high average when it comes to the cross-promotional stuff. And we had a complaint all throughout the pandemic era when all these free agents were coming up and everything like that. And there was sort of an arms race between AEW and WWE and different companies to sign these kind of freelance guys or, free agent people that were out there on the market. And New Japan, who was, losing a lot of money during those quarters, wasn't as quick to sign a lot of that talent or make them exclusive and things like that. And now we're in a kind of a position where a lot of the top talent has been signed to the various different companies. There's not the same level of free agency that there was a year or two ago. But New Japan's been able to leverage their working relationships with these various different companies to maximize the impact that they can get out of some of these major promotional feuds. And I think that's a really smart thing. If you're not going to be able to sign a Kiyomiya or a Kenny Omega, for example, then putting them in high profile spots with your top guys to build interest in the New Japan product and brand and create the perception that things are quote unquote back. What's better than that? I mean, how can you do better than that when talking about utilizing outside, talent?
Yeah, the Omega and Kiyomiya examples he mentioned were definitely two great in promotional things that they're doing. And like you mentioned, it's helping get that buzz and really building momentum behind New Japan. And a lot of fans are like, yeah, New Japan's back. They're doing cool things. They're doing a lot of interesting things. So yeah, they're really doing great. And, with Obari last year, he kind of made the statement, New Japan, we really want to do those dream matches that people are talking about. I want to work with other promotions. I want to give the fans some of these things they've been clamoring for, and we've been seeing that, and it's awesome.
And I'll tell you something else, Jeremy. I hate to be this guy, because I'm not a hater when it comes to Western promotions like, say, AEW. But you do have to ask yourself, okay, look at AEW, for instance. And this is a company where they've utilized a lot of outside talent, and they've done things that are cool to, like, the diehard fan, right?
Mm-hmm.
But not high profile. So, like, for instance, 2 examples. Recently, we had like Chris Jericho and Ishii having a barn burner match out of nowhere in the midst of, his Ring of Honor title reign on Dynamite. People loved it. They were talking about it, but it was like it was here today, gone tomorrow. Kind of the same thing with the Darby Allin versus Kushida match that just happened. These are things that just kind of pop up on the show. It's a part of like Tony Khan's booking to just have like kind of unique and interesting things sort of always happening on Dynamite. But what if they've never been able to take aside from Forbidden Door, they've never brought in a New Japan talent, put them in a high profile spot, and then drawn real ratings or real money with it. As opposed to look at what New Japan does when they bring in outside guys that are like big stars, they put them in high profile spots. The diehards get super nervous because they're afraid that they're going to get big leagued by the stars from the outside company.
Yeah.
And then win, lose, or draw, people are talking about New Japan. They're not talking just solely about, oh, look at how they got hoed by AEW or whatever, or look how they're getting like made to look like fools by Noah. It's like, oh, they're doing cool shit, and I'm interested in watching them. I think some of these other companies that have access to the outside resources, like an AEW or like some of these other companies that are out there, they'd probably like do well to pay attention to what New Japan's doing, because I gotta say, even just in the short period of time they're doing it better.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, leading to like bigger shows, almost like bigger angles, bigger payoffs.
And I think some of these other companies are afraid to promote the stars from an outside company on that level for fear that it will push, too much attention on the smaller company. But I think New Japan is kind of showing that it doesn't work that way. Like when you do something high profile, it actually benefits you because it's happening in your universe. It's happening on your show, and people associate cool things happening like that with your brand. Right. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Next question here from OK890 says, what do you think is the kayfabe reason for Okada being so much angrier at Kaito compared to how mad he was at Jay and Will?
I don't know that I necessarily have a good explanation for that. Maybe that's not what they've taken into consideration either, but the one thing I could tell you is Jay White and Will Ospreay never kicked him in the fucking head.
Right. And I think also, too, from a kayfabe perspective, we've seen Okada kind of talk down about Kiyomiya and just kind of been, the normal, douchebag Okada. Yeah, maybe I don't really feel like wrestling this guy. I don't really know this guy. I don't watch this guy's matches. And before he kicked him, like you mentioned, he was no-selling the boots. Like, he pretty much saw, Kiyomiya as this, second-rate, second-class, just some wrestler guy from another promotion that's not on his level whatsoever, and then he has the nerve to kick him in the face. Potentially could have like shattered his orbital bone or give him a concussion when he has big matches coming up. And so I think that really fuels into it.
Yeah, and I mean, there's always that fine line of like kayfabe versus the real world, and it's not always effective to be like, this was fake, but this was real. But you can sometimes toe that line to great effect. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this was an example of that. Like they're not winking at you while this is going on and being like, well, those other feuds with Okada were pretty good, but this one's real. They're not going to that level, but you can see it from a visual standpoint and everyone's reacting to it. There is like an excitement. And I think that one of the traps companies fall into is overdoing this. If you do too much of this, it invalidates the company and the work that the guys are doing just generally, or it can even push the boundary too much to where things get too violent, and then you're like looking at like some crazy battle arts type shit. But done in moderation, it can be really effective, and I think that's what's kind of happening here. Also, they really have picked their spot, because a lot of people were really upset, like truly, especially like deep Puro heads and the Noah fans, really upset about Okada's comments and everything and his treatment of Noah. But it seems to be just like the Ospreay and Omega situation, that these guys are doing business, and everything that he said prior to this for the past year or so has all been a setup for this moment. And he's actually doing a huge fucking favor for a guy in Kiyomiya who is a really, really, really talented top end star, but has never gotten to that upper echelon when it comes to drawing numbers, when it comes to selling tickets, when it comes to capturing the imagination of the wrestling fan base. Like, he's the ace, but kind of not really. You know what I mean? Like, he's always kind of suffered in that role.
And also being really handicapped by Keji Muto.
That too. That's a big part of it. And so Okada's gone out of his way to like make this kid and really give him the shine. You know, we hear that statement kind of always used in like sort of a tongue-in-cheek way. This is what giving the rub actually is. Like, he's giving this kid like some serious rub. Like, at the end of that exchange, the guy that looked like he was the top star and the one who was really like hungry and like the badass was Kiyomiya, not Okada.
Yeah. Next question from MJSPR says, can the young boy give the audience a breakdown of Okada's striking technique?
No, not necessarily. But you know what? I thought Okada had better strikes than, you know, I don't know his like sporting background too much. Didn't he play baseball or something like that?
I think so, yeah.
But he didn't, like, those palm strikes he threw were not bad. And like some of those clubbing strikes he threw, I mean, obviously they're kind of like flailing, but like pretty effective. Like,
dude, he was laying into him.
He was laying into him. So yeah. I don't know. I thought both guys looked pretty good here in this context.
Yeah. And then last question on this matchup here from friend of the show, James Boyd. He says, will I have to wait until late February, or will Josh right now state that he was wrong AF about agreeing with Master Wato's comments on Kaito Kiyomiya? If you forgot Wato's quote, here it is. Seeing Kaito Kiyomiya in the main event of Wrestle Kingdom 16 Night 3, I really didn't get it. Seeing that match, I didn't see what makes him a top guy. I don't think he's any better than me, certainly. And James says, come forth and unburden yourself from this cap.
All right, so like, let me state my position on that. From a mechanical standpoint, not talking about fire, not talking about facial, not talking about like the small little intricate things, and those all matter. But from just a mechanical standpoint, do I think Kaito Kiyomiya is that much better in the ring than Master Wato? And I will tell you to this day, no, I don't think that he's that much better than him from that standpoint. Now, do I think he has something special that is lacking with Wato? Yeah, I do. And do I think that he's been given the opportunity to shine on a higher level and probably definitely has more confidence than Wato? Sure. I mean, there's levels to this game. But I'm never going to sit here and tell you that Kaito Kiyomiya mechanically is that much better than Wato. I do think Wato had some good points there, some good salient points, and I don't think it's ever bad for these guys in a ego-driven business to publicly, you know, point out the fact that they believe in themselves and they think that they're on the same level as another wrestler, even if it might not end up being the case. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But as time has gone on from that quote, obviously Kiyomiya has kind of differentiated himself and has grown quite a bit as a performer. I did think in the early stages of his career, most of his great matches, I felt like he was getting carried by wrestlers that were frankly a lot better than him, like Masato Tanaka or like Kazuchika Nakajima. You know, a lot of the big matches I would tune in for, I was never really that impressed with Kiyomiya. I do think Kiyomiya is a very good performer, but that's about it. Like, yeah, I'm not going to go that much more in depth with this whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I mean, to your point about mechanics, I mean, does Kiyomiya slap on a headlock better than Master Wato? I mean, probably not. But I've seen a handful of Kiyomiya matches, and every time I've seen them, they've been, 4-star plus, incredible, ton of fire, great moves, great matches, main event level stuff. And obviously, Wato has not quite gotten there yet.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, a lot of that comes down to ring psychology and understanding of, how to lay out a match, how to work a match, how to connect with the crowd. And I think that those are all things that Wato maybe is not, figured out completely, although I think he's on a pretty good path lately.
Yeah. So now moving on, we move into the Kongo versus LIJ best of 5 series. So the first of this series, we had Tadasuke representing Kongo. He defeated Bushi, who's representing LIJ, 11 minutes and 9 seconds.
Yeah, I like this Tadasuke, man. I can't really totally explain it, but I like him. He's like, he kind of reminds me of if Jumbo Tsuruta and Steve Corino had a love child. Like, that's what he reminds me of. Like, it's kind of like a hoss, but he also is kind of like a shit grin eating heel. Like, kind of reminds me of like Junior Taichi, but he like bumbles like a 1980s, heel, like I don't know. He reminds me of like Adrian Adonis or like Buddy Rose. Like, he's just, real, or, most recently a guy who I think that I liked a lot that people hated was like Kona Reeves in NXT. And we saw him on the Largo Loop a lot. People hated him, but I thought he was doing his job perfectly.
He generated heat on those house shows.
Yeah, and he was like, people thought he sucked, but it's like he sucks because he's not doing cool moves because he's eating all the offense and selling his ass off. And I thought he was really good at it. And he is a guy that kind of reminds me of Tadasuke, which is funny because Tadasuke is a junior and he was so much bigger than Bushi. We did get T-shirt Bushi, even on a Wrestle Kingdom 17 show, even with him, this being his big Wrestle Kingdom moment, man, still coming out here in the T-shirt.
Yeah, that was a joke throughout the show. Everybody who didn't get a Tokyo Dome moment, like, this is their Wrestle Kingdom. Like, Ishii, that pre-show match, that was his Wrestle Kingdom moment. This was Bushi's Wrestle Kingdom moment. Yeah, Tadasuke did rip the shirt off of him. And yeah, a fun matchup here. Towards the end, Bushi sprayed the miss on Tadasuke, but Tadasuke was able to quickly get a quick crucifix pin in response to that and got the upsetting kind of victory there and led off Kongo being 1-0 and brought the overall score to a 2-3-1.
Yep.
So then from there, we had Hiromu Takahashi representing LIJ defeating Hajime Ohara representing Kongo, 13 minutes and 5 seconds.
Was not a fan of this match. I preferred the work and heat between Tadasuke and Bushi a lot more than I did over the Hiromu and Hajime Ohara match. This match kind of, now I will say this, I thought Ohara had some really raw gear.
Yeah.
But the match was kind of laid out for Ohara to get most of the offense, get most of the heat. It was kind of just like Hiromu trying to survive the guy and he just got beat up and kind of dominated almost the entirety of the time until like the final, probably like 4 or 5 minute stretch, maybe less than that, where Hiromu started mounting comebacks and hope spots and counters and yada yada. And then eventually by, happenstance caught him with the time bomb too and got him out of there. But it was very clear that like Hiromu was the overwhelming favorite. Most people were expecting him to win. So they laid the match out in a way to where they gave Hajime Ohara most of the match to make him seem credible. And it just was, I'm not a big fan of just watching Hiromu roll around and sell a lot like that.
Yeah.
I think that they could have had a more competitive match that was more entertaining than this one was. So, it just wasn't very interesting in my opinion. And also most of Hajime Ohara's offense was non-offensive, but it just wasn't gripping.
Yeah, every once in a while he would do a cool sequence or a cool move, but overall just kind of very undynamic offense. And like you mentioned, Hiromu was getting beat down.
Undynamic offense.
Hiromu was getting beat down by this guy we're not really familiar with, and he's kind of mopping the floor for Hiromu for the beginning and really kind of getting heat and getting the control. And it's kind of like, why is Hiromu selling for this guy that honestly, we're not familiar with Noah. This guy doesn't seem like a top junior to me. Like you mentioned, it could have been more competitive, more fast-paced, more kind of flashy and entertaining, and it just wasn't that. But Hiromu eventually hits the victory royale, followed by the time bomb 2 to get the win here, and that ties things up for the overall score 3-3, and then for the Kongo versus LIJ 1-1. So then from there, we had Manobu Soya from Kongo defeating Sanada from LIJ, 13 minutes and 57 seconds.
Yeah, another match that was good, but not great. A lot of history between Manobu Soya and Sanada. And for, two guys that had so much history, I would have expected or hoped for more chemistry. But that just kind of didn't seem to be the case here. Like, they went out there and they had a fine standard by the numbers match, but I don't think either one of these two guys played a whole lot into one another's game. You've got Sanada, who's very good with the technical wrestling and the mat wizardry, and he does a lot of that sort of like British style, and then breaking it up with like high octane athletic spots and dives and stuff like that. And Manobu Soya is kind of more of a hoss guy, hard hitting, strong strength wrestler. And it just kind of never came together, in my opinion, from that standpoint. Like, I just felt like it was kind of a weird clash of styles, truthfully.
Yeah, kind of a weird mix, and I feel like Sanada has a track record of not having good matches with former tag partners. And there was,
you don't say.
And there was the one botch spot where Sanada went for the moonsault, and
he landed on his head.
Yeah, Soya was supposed to move, but didn't really move all the way, and Sanada still caught him in the head, and it was kind of this awkward of like, all right, what's happening here? And it's kind of a extended.
No, I think he was supposed to get his leg. He put his knees up,
right,
and he didn't land on the knees, and like his legs landed on Manobu Soya's face. But at the same time, I think Manobu Soya had been working on Sanada's legs, so Sanada was like selling the knee afterward. It just was weird.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, yeah, Soya came back and got the pinfall victory over Sanada, so that brought Kongo and Noah back in the lead. So overall 3-4-1, and then Kongo 2-1.
You mean 4-3-1?
Yeah. And then following that,
we did have a question.
Yeah, that's right. VE30 says, "Do you think Sanada will leave LIJ?" As Takagi and Naito got storylines to tell. If Sanada leaves, who will join LIJ?
It is funny that they mentioned the idea of Sanada leaving LIJ, because did you catch any of the backstage comments for either of these two shows?
I did not.
So I wasn't able to watch. Well, I did watch briefly, but there was no translations for this show's backstage comments, but there obviously was for the next day. And at the conclusion of the main event, where all of LIJ is backstage and Shingo is at his table with his title, everyone is clapping for him except Sanada. Sanada is just totally stoic and not responding in any way. And he actually kind of looks a little frustrated. And then the guys leave to give Shingo the floor, and Shingo's got beer, and he was like, Sanada, come here, come open this beer for me. And he's like, I can't get it open. He's like, have a drink with me. have a drink. And like Sonata does not look like he wants to have a drink with him. And then they like crack a beer, and Sonata takes his beer and he just poured it on Shingo's head. And like Shingo kind of after he didn't do it in like a
funny haha.
A funny haha, let's go champ. He did it in like this like stoic, just like fuck you kind of way. And then just and didn't say anything, just walked away. And Shingo was like, I wasn't quite expecting that from Sonata. Like that's kind of, well, you know, they congratulate champions with the beer bath. That's my first beer shower. Thank you, Sonata. And like he's playing it off, but I'm thinking to myself, like they're starting to tell a story where Sonata's getting frustrated because everyone else is ahead of him. I mean, he's the bottom rung heavyweight guy in the group, and like at this point, the only person that's like not above him is like Bushi,
which is not saying much.
He's right there with Teton.
Yeah.
So there might be some smoke to, like when I read this question before the show, I thought this doesn't make sense. Like, you know, Sonata's not leaving. But then when I saw that backstage segment, there might be some smoke to the fire.
Yeah, and we're seeing a lot of faction shakeups right now in New Japan. People kind of going in different directions. So yeah, I mean, Sonata's kind of been stuck in LIJ for several. I mean, since we've been doing this show, kind of been in that same spot, and then obviously with Shingo coming in, kind of dropped him down some. So yeah, I think Sonata definitely needs a fresh coat of paint, something different to kind of, you know, if he really wants to break out, I think he does have to kind of get out of LIJ, where he's always going to kind of be where he's slotted.
With Progressive's Name Your Price tool, you can find options that fit your budget, because giving you options is the right thing to do.
Oh yeah, like when I hold the door for someone. Sure, it may be weird if I don't time it right, and they're a little too far away, and now they're running, and we're both asking ourselves, is it worth it to run, instead of just, you know, letting them open their own door?
But still, it's the right thing to do. So get options based on your needs with Progressive's Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and third-party insurers. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
All right, so up next, we had the next matchup here in the Best of 5 series. Shingo Takagi, the provisional 2023 KOPW champion, he defeats Kazuchika Nakajima, representing Congo, 18 minutes and 28 seconds.
Before I jump into that, so I just stepped away from the show. We took a small break. You guys won't know that I did that at all, but Raw 30 is on in the other room. And the American Badass Undertaker just came out.
Oh my gosh.
He came out to the Kid Rock music and everything. It's so funny, bro.
Oh man.
and he came out when not Eli Drake, what's his name? LA Knight?
LA Knight, yeah.
Crack, the White Rock.
Yes.
And like I walked away, but obviously like they're probably gonna have Undertaker like probably like beat up or, you know, make him to look like a fool. And it's like Vince is definitely back, bringing back, you know, old ass legends to beat up the young talent that you have today, to undermine them entirely, so everyone can know that your heyday was the best time.
Ridiculous.
Anyways, yeah, so Shingo Takagi versus Katsuhiko Nakajima. This is the match that I feel like a lot of people were most looking forward to on the show, and it definitely delivered in spades. It wasn't quite the match I expected it to be. Considering both of these guys' reputations, I sort of thought that we were in store for like a Kensuke Sasaki versus like God, what's wrong with me? One of the greatest wrestlers of all time. Like, what am I? Kobashi, like the Kensuke Sasaki and Kobashi match, where like they just like go to war and just blast each other. Mm-hmm. And this wasn't quite that, but it was really, really good for what it was. Like a lot of great back and forth, a lot of really great action. Nakajima was very vicious, although I kind of felt like there was like we were talking last week, a lot of people were asking about the violent streak from Nakajima and some of the unfortunate mishaps that have occurred in his matches in the past year. And I could definitely see, like, I felt like Shingo was taking a smidge off of his blows to just let him know, like, we're in here working, brother. Like,
yeah, I would say, Nakajima, man, those kicks, there was no KO moments like he's had previously, but there were some very hard kicks to Shingo's midsection. He was blasting Shingo with kicks all throughout the matchup, and kind of like you were mentioning earlier with, Kevin Kelly and Chris Charlton kind of calling this as, Noah being the heels. Well, Nakajima really played up to that and was getting a ton of heat on Shingo. There was one point where he knocked Shingo on the outside, and he went back in and he was, doing Shingo's, cross-legged pose in the middle of the ring, and he just has that.
And that smile.
Yes, that incredible grin. Just this evil, just kind of like evil smirk grin that Nakajima has. He did that several times throughout the matchups, and throughout the matchups, kind of drilling Shingo with those deadly kicks. Shingo would try and come back with the the elbow strikes to the head and some of his bigger lariat maneuvers, the Yukon lariat and the pumping bomber. I was eventually able to get a made in Japan on Nakajima. Nakajima did hit his brain buster, which I think is one of his big finishes for a great near fall as well.
They got me on that one because I did not anticipate anyone kicking out of anyone's finisher in this match. That was something that was pretty surprising to me.
Yeah. And after the pumping bomber, Nakajima kicked out of that, and Shingo quickly got him up, hit a couple strikes, then hit him with the last of the dragon to get the pinfall win there. First time in Shingo's career, beating Nakajima. And then that brought the overall score up 4-1, with the best of 5 being tied 2-2. So it would come down to the last matchup here to get the win, quote unquote, overall for New Japan versus Noah, and to get the win in the best of 5 series between Kongo and LIJ. So the main event, we had Tetsuya Naito defeating Kenoh 26 minutes and 57 seconds.
The funny thing for me is I think I ended up liking this almost as much or maybe a little bit more than the preceding match. Not sure why. This just kind of felt more spirited to me, with the personalities between these two guys and the heat. And as stiff as Nakajima is, Kenoh is another level of kick. And he really, really laid into Naito in this match. The only thing that I would say was maybe a little bit of a drawback was I felt like the finish came a little bit suddenly, which kind of surprised me. And again, kind of the similar situation to the one I described with Hiromu and Ohara. I felt like Kenoh took maybe not all the match, but he took a majority of the match. But it was probably 65-45 or maybe even 70-30. So he was definitely dominant. But that's I guess kind of to be expected, considering the fact that Naito's the bigger star, and Naito does work from underneath in a lot of his big matches anyways. He always kind of has that underdog role. I think the difference here, why I like this versus the junior match from prior, is Kenoh's just awesome when he's just awesome. He beats the crap out of people. It's so great.
Yeah, he was on the offense a lot here, had the overall advantage for the majority of the match over Naito. And again, like you mentioned, those really hard kicks. And again, similar to Nakajima, he was mocking Naito throughout the match, doing Naito's, eye-opening taunt, doing that several times throughout the matchup, and hitting a lot of his big signature moves, that double stomp off the top, and just a lot of his big signature strikes he was laying on Naito to get a lot of great near falls. But then Naito was able to rally back, hit some of his big moves, the Valencia, that snowplow Northern Lights bomb maneuver, and then eventually there was a great Destino counter there at one point, kind of the mini Destino, which eventually he did hit the normal arm ringer Destino towards the end there to get the win and pin Kenoh. So LIJ gets the win in the best of 5 series, 5-4. and then or 3-2, and then overall New Japan beats Noah 5-4-1. So kind of a big celebration there for Tetsuya Naito, and again, this is kind of his Wrestle Kingdom moment here since he was in that 6-man tag at the Tokyo Dome, and big news kind of coming off after the match. Naito does his promo, and Keji Muto was on commentary for this match, and after Naito walked out, Muto rolled in the ring and essentially challenged Tetsuya Naito to face him at his final retirement show coming up next month in the Tokyo Dome, and Naito accepted the challenge. Question here from OK890 says, two of Noah's top guys got pinned at the Yokohama show. Do you think Noah is going to let both their junior and heavyweight champions lose also? I think that's referring probably to the Tokyo Dome card.
Yeah. Well, one thing I want to say is I know last week I predicted that there'd be some sort of trade-off hypothetically where New Japan would win a certain amount and then maybe they'd let Congo get the win, and that might be the more interesting thing, yada, yada. And I still kind of feel that way to some degree, but with us kind of knowing that New Japan doesn't always play well with others, and it being a New Japan branded show, and then the big plans that are obviously on the table for Naito moving forward, it all kind of does make sense. And once we got to the point in the show, once we got to that point where it was like everything was already done and that we had that no contest and we were going into the best of 5 series, I was like, oh, I started doing the math and I was like, we're going to get 2-2. It's going to come down to this, and it's going to be the final match for both New Japan versus Noah and LIJ versus Congo. I was like, there's no way New Japan's losing both of those things. So it became very apparent at the end that it was going to for sure be like Naito picking up the big win for everybody.
Yeah, it played out just how I said last week on the show. I guess Naito, he didn't get a big spot at the Tokyo Dome. Like, they had to give him something, and so it was kind of, Naito's big, show closing moment here, and then we find out, he's going to get another shot at the Tokyo Dome. He's going to be in the main event of this Keji Muto Grand Final Pro Wrestling Last Love Holdout show, February 21st in the Tokyo Dome, big main event there. Before we get to that, we did have a few other questions here. Senor Sombrero 3K says, after watching the joint show, who would you like to see from Noah coming over for the G1?
Oh, there's so many guys that I would like to see, but I don't know. I mean, Go Shiozaki would be cool. Katsuhiko Nakajima, Kano, any of those guys, Kiyomiya, like any of them,
Yeah, all those guys would be great. Marufuji, would love to have him back in another G1.
There's a lot of options, and then they've got a lot of kind of freelance talent that are pretty great too.
Yeah, and guys like Masa Kiyomiya and Inaba, some of those Haas guys, I think would be good. You put them in a block with Ishii and Goto and Shingo. That would be a lot of fun. Heavenly Halberd says, what do you think was the most surprising result to come out of NJPW Cross Noah?
The no contest, because that was perfect booking. It was exactly what it needed to be. I can't think of a different option that would have been better, right, for so many reasons, but it wasn't something that very many, if anybody, was predicting. Everything else on the show was pretty much by the numbers.
Yeah, and we thought this tag match was going to be by the numbers, standard tag match. All right, Makabe's probably going to eat the pinfall here, and it'll just be a nice tease to a match that's never going to happen. But it was completely what we were not expecting, and this whole crazy wild brawl, the thing that everybody's been talking about, and really excited for this upcoming matchup. Then Dr. Larry the Dark says, Obari and Kadani said big changes and the world is open. So what more collabs do you see? I just hope to see All Japan jump in, especially with how collaborative they are on the All Japan side.
Again, we're kind of aware of what's going on in these other companies. I can't speak too much for Jeremy, but I try to pay attention to what's going on. I listen to podcasts and different individuals and read news sites and stuff to kind of keep up to date on what's happening in the greater Japanese wrestling scene. But I'm not like, I can't tell you the last time I watched a Kento Miyahara match or a Suwama match or anything like that. So, and most of my main attention on these companies is focused primarily on the big stars. So anyone on the undercard, I'm going to be less familiar with. But from what I can tell right now, All Japan is in dire need of a jolt or a kick in the arm. So it might be a good thing for them to work together. But I mean, the All Japan of 2023 is not the All Japan of even just 4 or 5 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, All Japan's definitely really low on the radar for me. I mean, I know I read The Observer every week, and I listen to Big Audio Nightmare, friend of the show, Mike Simbervivi, his podcast there on Observer, where they cover all of Pure Rezu. And so, yeah, not super familiar with All Japan. I mean, I'm always down for collaborations, joint shows. I think it's a great way to discover new talent. But, yeah, I mean, if it can work out to benefit, both New Japan and All Japan, I'll be down for it.
But I will say this, in terms of Japanese wrestling, I mean, the big crossover is Noah. I mean, most of the other companies that exist out there, we're going to talk about some crossovers that are happening here pretty soon. I mean, there are definitely a couple cool things you could pick out of a All Japan or a Big Japan or a DDT or even a Dragon Gate, but there's not that across the board thing that you could do with the whole entire company where it's going to sound or seem or feel equal. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's most of these companies, they're just not on the same wavelength and standing current day that New Japan is. And that's not us saying it from like a fanboy standpoint or like tribalistic. It is just a fact of the matter. Like, their talent reserves are not as deep as what New Japan has currently. And I don't know that they have the star power in many cases, that there's enough fan interest to do big shows with some. I mean, probably with Dragon. Now, the one exception there would be with Dragon Gate, but I don't think from a political standpoint, New Japan or Dragon Gate would be willing to do too much of that. They might be willing to do some one-offs or some crossover matches. But like let's say if they try to do a show like this, I mean, just the fact that most of their talent are all juniors is like a big, how are we going to cross this divide sort of situation.
Right.
And then they're very exclusionary. I mean, I know New Japan has been historically, especially in recent times, has been that way, but Dragon Gate even more so. Like, they generally don't work with other companies. So that would be a really tough thing to cross in general. I mean, I just couldn't see them putting Shun Skywalker in a similar, like New Japan. I couldn't see New Japan letting Shun Skywalker like shoot kick Okada in the head and be gravy. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and also in the past too, New Japan has poached some of the Dragon Gate talent. We've seen when Ricochet kind of came over for Super Juniors and was originally representing Dragon Gate, and then eventually just kind of got swept up there and became New Japan. So stuff like that too could happen as well with some of these collaborations. But speaking of collaborations, we did get the card for the Keji Muto Grand Final Pro Wrestling Last Love Holdout, February 21st in the Tokyo Dome. This is Keji Muto's, well, as of right now, his final big retirement show. So like we said, the main event is going to be Keji Muto representing Noah against Tetsuya Naito representing New Japan Pro Wrestling. Then in the semi-main event, we'll have a non-title match with Kazuchika Okada representing New Japan versus Kaito Kiyomiya representing Noah. We had some comments from Okada saying, I didn't agree to this match. It's not a New Japan show. I'm not showing up. I'm boycotting. Why would I have to wrestle him? Sure, yeah, he kicked me in the face, but that's not enough for me to go want to wrestle him on this show in the Tokyo Dome. It's not a New Japan show. I'm more concerned about the IWGP title, my defense with Shingo coming up on this New Beginning tour. So we'll see how that plays out. Then also there'll be a non-title match with Hiromu Takahashi, the current IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion from New Japan, taking on Asuka, the current GHC Junior Heavyweight Champion in Noah. Then we'll have Nosawa and Mazada from Noah taking on Gato and Taiji Shimori from New Japan. Then we'll have All Japan versus Noah as Kento Miyahara, Suwama, and Yuma Oyagi will take on Kano, Kazuhiko Nakajima, and Manabu Soya. Then we'll have Dragon Gate versus Noah as Shun Skywalker, Kai, and Diamante will take on Marufuji, Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr., and Ninja Mac. Then we'll have a match from DDT as Katsumata, Kojima, Mao, and Yuki Inoue will take on Tetsuya Endo, Hideki Okatani, Yuya Kuroku, and Takeshi Masada. Then we'll have a matchup from Noah as Ita, Yoshinira Ogawa, Hayata Daga, and Chris Ridgway will take on Atsushi Kotoge, Yohei, Siki Yoshioka, Alejandro, and Junta Miyawaki. Another Noah match with Segura, Kojima, and Timothy Thatcher taking on Jake Lee, Jack Morris, and Anthony Green. Then we'll have a matchup from Tokyo Joshi Pro as Miyo Yamashita will team up with Yuya Sakazaki, Rika Tatsumi, and Shoko Nakajima versus Mizuki, Miyo Watanabe, Maki Ito, and Yuki Arai. And then the opener will be a Noah match with Masa Kitamiya and Daiki Inaba versus Yoshiki Inamura and Yatsutaka Yano.
Yeah, and during the post-match comments from the Wrestle Kingdom 17 and Yokohama show, I did notice during his post-match celebration, for whatever reason, while Desperado was in the back, Nosawa Rangai came backstage and they shared words, but there was no translation, so I couldn't understand the meaning of it. They seemed to be like jesting at one another, and then they shook hands, and that was kind of like weird. I don't know if that's building to something or what the deal is there, but Nosawa Rangai's final match is on this show, and that's going to be the tag team match with him and Mazada against Gato and Taiji Ishimori, which is very interesting considering the history with Gato and Taiji Ishimori with Noah just in general, that they're so high up on the card.
Yeah.
But we did have that question here that was asked earlier. You know, two of Noah's top guys got pinned at Yokohama show. Do we think Noah's going to let their junior and heavyweight champion lose at Muda's final Tokyo Dome show?
Yeah.
And keep in mind, the main event, too, is Keji Muto, who is, as of now, a Noah talent.
Yeah, I mean, I have a hard time seeing Muto beat Naito there. I think it's going to be a big moment for Naito to get a win there, and Muto doing business hopefully the right way and going out on his back. So yeah, New Japan's going to get the win there in that main event. But yeah, those two non-title matches, I have a hard time seeing Okada lose right now. Currently, still, he's going to still be the IWGP champion. I think at this point, I think the Shingo match might be before it, but he's probably beating Shingo. So I mean, they always could go. It's a non-title that can go a 30-minute draw with Okada and Kiyomiya and kind of continue to build heat for this thing. I think that I'd probably go that route because I have a hard time, again, just seeing Okada lose right here. I mean, it would be interesting, but I still don't know if New Japan would want that. I could potentially see Hiromu losing to maybe bring in Asuka for a title challenger or Amakusa, or be a part of his the Junior Festival show that's going to be coming up.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my thinking too. It sort of depends on what future plans might be. Let me put it to you this way. If hypothetically there are any plans in the future, and I don't mean like potential, hypothetical, non-concrete, nebulous type plans. I'm talking about this is going to happen. It's on the books. It's already booked. The public just doesn't know about it. If that sort of stuff exists, which it very well could be, then there is a possibility that these champions from GHC, from Noah, could win their respective matches to maybe build to something down the road. But I will tell you like this, make no mistake about it. One way or the other, New Japan, and this is just political, they're the bigger company, they're not going to lose the feud, and they're not going to put over these outside talents, so that they can just put them over and then we all just move on with their lives. Like, for instance, they didn't trade the Kano and Nakajima losses so that their champions could beat the champions from New Japan on the Tokyo Dome show. If that's what, you know what I mean? Like, that's just not going to happen. Now, hypothetically, is there a situation where Kiyomiya could get a win so that down the road they do another big money match between him and Okada, maybe in the G1, maybe in some other Tokyo Dome situation, so that Okada can beat him definitively? That's possible. I don't know if it's likely, but it's possible. Same thing with the Makusa and or Amakusa, however you pronounce it, and Hiromu, because like you mentioned, there's a junior festival coming up. Maybe they want to run that back. Maybe it'd be more intriguing if Amakusa picked up the first win. But don't be surprised if New Japan goes 3-0 in the top 3 matches of the night.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
At all. And I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's just, it could easily happen. And for anyone wondering, like, well, why would New Japan, why would Noah agree to that? It's all about a check.
Thinking about a check. Hawaiian Punch VV says, is Muto already the promoter and booker of the year for his retirement show alone? He was able to book Noah's and New Japan's junior champs against each other. He was able to book their aces against each other. And most surprising, he was able to book Kento Miyahara and Kazuchika Nakajima in the same match with their beef history, not to mention all the other cross-promotion happening there.
I don't know if I'd call him the Booker of the Year. I know you're just being tongue-in-cheek, but it is pretty wild, the different things that he's been able to, or whoever that's involved has been able to get involved in this match. This feels like you said, Wrestle Kingdom 17 in Yokohama is like a produce show on, like, what did you say it was on?
Produce show on steroids. Yeah,
well, this is like so much like human growth hormone is going to like make you have a heart attack, like just kill you on the spot. Like a bunch of like what's that drug that's in everything now that's like just killing people?
I don't know.
I forget what it is, but it's like that. It's pretty crazy, especially the Kento Miyahara, Kazuchika Nakajima stuff is, I don't know if you know, Jeremy, but like Kento Miyahara was trained by Nakajima and came up in the Kensuke office / Diamond Ring promotion originally. And so he was like the underling underneath Nakajima. Like Nakajima was like his literal like trainer. Like he had several, but he was his primary trainer. And they had a falling out and he left Diamond Ring. And obviously at this point, like as high profile as Nakajima is, Kento Miyahara like has vastly surpassed him in many respects in the wrestling industry and like is not anywhere near being in his shadow. Like if anything, Nakajima is in Kento Miyahara's shadow. So these two guys have never, like, since the split, since he left to go to All Japan, like they've never worked together. So that's a very interesting prospect. And I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen there.
that should be fun to watch. Yeah, there's been a lot of interesting matches on here, a lot of interesting cross promotion. So yeah, big shout out to Muto for getting this card together and getting this fun Tokyo Dome show in February. Hawaiian Punch BV also asks, what's going to be the scarier sight? Muto's knees shattering on the moonsault, or Muto's knees shattering in the middle of Naito's Destino attempt?
Hopefully nobody gets hurt, but I do think we will see Muto do a big moonsault. And, I guess we should talk about that for just a second. Like, everyone was wondering about Naito being this huge megastar for New Japan, and why wasn't he getting a big prominent spot, excuse me, on Wrestle Kingdom? Well, this is why, because they had bigger plans for them. And also, this probably answers the question of why I noticed that they never even touched in their, multi-man tag match, because they're probably saving it for this match. So
right,
this is a really, really, really big deal. I mean, this has got to be one of the biggest send-off matches in Japanese wrestling history. And these guys have only had one match against one another, and Muto beat Naito. So Naito has, this is a big thing for him. Like, it's the guy that inspired him to come into pro wrestling, and he wants to defeat him and kind of, get that torch passed. So
yeah, it's gonna be a big moment for him to kind of put this legend, this guy he looked up to, the guy kind of blew him out in the Tokyo Dome earlier in his career. It's a way for him to kind of put him out in the Tokyo Dome, and it's going to be a really big moment for Tetsuya Naito there, which kind of leads into Hawaiian Punch BB's last question. So, with Naito's plate looking full at the start of 2023 with Kano, Muto, and Umino, is Naito going to have a big 2023?
I really, truly would not be surprised if he goes through Kano, Keji Muto, and Shota Umino. I wouldn't be surprised if he won the New Japan Cup and then beat Okada. I'm not saying they should do that, but I wouldn't be surprised if at some point this year he holds the world title.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility. I know a lot of people were kind of clamoring for that last year, and there was some, with the rivalry with Okada, I think people were hoping that he would eventually get one more match and end up winning that match, but it didn't happen. So yeah, I mean, with the current role he's on right now, it seems like if he definitely, Umino will be the last kind of guy he faces in February. If he beats Umino, I think he's riding a ton of momentum going into New Japan Cup season. And yeah, what a big matchup for Sakura Genesis, Okada and Naito. That would be a pretty big deal for that show, a full cheering crowd. So they could do that. But yeah, overall, I think, he will have, again, another really great year. And yeah, potentially could get, capture that IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. Okay, 890 says, do you think there's a decent chance Muto's Dome show outsells Wrestle Kingdom with it having the 3 of the 4 biggest draws in Japan in big matches?
I don't think it will. I mean, we know that the last Wrestle Kingdom show in the Tokyo Dome did just over 26,000. And I could be wrong here. I haven't checked the numbers, but I feel like at the last check, this show was a lot lower than that. Although, with them announcing a card, that might boost things. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe because they already did sell out most of the ringside seats already. That stuff's gone. So yeah, this might inspire tickets to, exponentially increase. It's hard to say.
Yeah, we don't have WrestleTix doing a lot for the Japanese shows for New Japan or Noah. So yeah, it's kind of hard to tell.
The one thing I will say though is that I think regardless, this is going to do a better gate, even if it does a lower number, because the tickets were much higher for this show than they were for Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, some of those ringside tickets were really high costs. Of course, Muto's last show here, so yeah, charge some really big prices for those ringside arena seats. So yeah, they're definitely going to rake in a big gate, and yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we get like at least 20,000 crowd for this. Pretty big card. And yeah, like they mentioned, you have Naito on it, you have Okada on it now, Hiromu Takahashi, and then you have all these other promotions on it. It's going to be, I think, a pretty big show. He also asked, do you think Kaito versus Okada 1 will be the end of this rivalry or just a start? I feel like they can make a lot more money still and potentially run a dome show with Okada Kaito as the main event if they build Kaito enough.
I mean, I definitely think the prospect of that is on the table and might be the impetus for them to not have Okada win the first match. Then again, depending on the method that they go about doing that, I'm not saying that they should do the same thing that they did with Muto and Kiyomiya, but there could be a potential storyline where Kiyomiya chases potentially, and maybe like if the match is really outstanding and he really has a compelling showcase or showing and just falls short and Okada's the better man, then that could be enough for people to want to see the match again in the future and there be an appeal. But if he beats Okada, if they have him beat Okada and Okada has to return to New Japan as the quote unquote champion, but he got beat by the GHC champion, that's very interesting. And the same way how last week where I was like, Kano beating Naito might be more interesting on paper. Kind of feel the same way here with Kiyomiya and him. But it really just depends on if they're going to do business again in the future. If they don't have anything concrete planned right now, then it's a foregone conclusion Okada's going to win. Because even if Okada wins and they want to do business in the future, the door's probably always going to be open.
Right.
But if they have something planned and they know that the way they want to get there is by doing the upset, man, that would be Okada like really, really making this kid and doing a huge favor for him. I also have to wonder about the politics of that with what we've heard from reports about Bushiroad being concerned about Cyber Agent and viewing them as a serious, competitor just for a variety of reasons. I mean, think of it from that standpoint. This would be like, I don't know, like in 1998, like Stone Cold Steve Austin wrestling like Bill Goldberg and putting over Bill Goldberg. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I could not imagine that.
Yeah, that's kind of what this is like in a certain sense, obviously on a smaller scale, but that's kind of crazy. So I also have to wonder if like New Japan would even be willing, as cool as it sounds on paper and as much as the booking might even make sense from a monetary standpoint, like, are they not concerned that by making this kid, you might be like,
building up your enemy, building up their biggest competition.
Building up your biggest competition. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think the 30-minute draw could be compelling too, to kind of build us up and do another match because it's for Okada. It's like, hey, he did not beat this kid. Like, he couldn't get the job done. He wasn't good enough to put away Kiyomiya, and Kiyomiya can be like, yeah, Okada didn't beat me. I took him to the limit. He couldn't get the job done. Like, if we had a full hour, I would beat him. And then you can build up to another match, give it the main event, give it the hour time limit, and have another great matchup in that way. So let's move on now to the New Beginning in Nagoya. So this show happened on January 22nd, so one day after the Wrestle Kingdom 17 show in Yokohama Arena. This was a cheering event and the kickoff of the New Beginning tour. So the show opened up. We had Togi Makabe and Toru Yano defeating Oscar Lube and Yuto Nakashima. 9 minutes and 25 seconds. Your standard opening matchup here with Makabe hitting the King Kong knee drop on Oscar Lube to get the win here. So standard opening matchup. So second matchup, we had El Desperado, Minoru Suzuki, Ren Narita, and Tomoaki Hanma defeating the House of Torture team of Dick Togo, Evil Show, and Yujiro Takahashi. 10 minutes and 40 seconds. After the matchup, we had a little angle here where Suzuki calls out the House of Torture, saying, there's 4 of them, but they had the Never 6-man titles, and there's 3 of them in the ring. So Suzuki, Despy, and Narita laying out the challenge for House of Torture. So maybe that their upcoming matchup will be turned to a title match.
Yeah, there's still a lot of distrust and kind of animosity between Minoru Suzuki and Ren Narita, and that was kind of showcased here. And then throughout the match, they had a lot of tension, and then the backstage comments. So it's like they're a unit, and I guess they could go one of 2 ways. These guys could band together and form a bond, and maybe the story continues from there, or they fail and there's some sort of falling out and they feud with one another. So where they're going kind of remains to be seen.
Yeah. Then after that, we had TMDK, Kosei Vegeta, Mikey Nichols, Shane Hayes, and Zack Sabre Jr. defeating Hiroki Goto, Tomohiro Ishii, Yoshihashi, and Ryohei Oiwa. There was a ton of heat here between Oiwa and Vegeta because, Vegeta has, he's left the quote-unquote lion mark and he's now a part of TMDK. So a lot of heat there between Oiwa and Vegeta. But in the end, it was TMDK that got the win as Shane Hayes had set out powerbomb on Oiwa.
8 guys that I'm really into, and there's a kind of a lot going on here that was good. Obviously, the TV title preview and Ishii and Zack is a classic combination, and then the TMDK tag team against Bishamon. That's going to be very good. And then you've got the two premier young lions in New Japan sort of having some, a dispute based on their allegiances and that sort of thing. So a lot good kind of going on here in this match.
Yeah. And then following that, we had the Bullet Club team of El Phantasmo, Kenta, and Taiji Ishimori defeating Hiroshi Tanahashi, Jado, and Master Wato, 11 minutes and 27 seconds. ELP has a never openweight title match coming up with Tama Tonga. We have the Kenta and Tanahashi singles match coming up, and then I believe Ishimori and Wato are going to have a singles match on this tour as well. So yeah, so final little 6-man match to build some of those matches up.
One thing I did want to say earlier, Togi Makabe took more bumps for these Lions than he did in the Wrestle Kingdom Yokohama show.
Trying to give back to the youth.
Yeah.
Then we had the United Empire team of Aaron Henare, Francisco Akira, and Will Ospreay defeating just 3 guys in this match. Doki, Taichi, and Yoshinobu Kanemaru with Taka. This was supposed to be an 8-man tag, but TJP had some travel issues, and I believe his plane was landing as the show was happening, so wasn't able to be on the show. This turned into a 6-man tag here, and of course they're building up Ospreay and Taichi, and then Doki and Kanemaru challenging Akira and TJP for the junior tag team titles later on in the tour. So that was a fun little 6-man match. I really liked the interactions between Ospreay and Taichi.
The finish of the match was really fantastic as Doki looked like he was getting things cooking, but then he kind of got outmanned, and Ospreay was the legal man, and he was kind of running roughshod over Ospreay, but then there was interference kind of that came from Francesco Akira, so he's trying to fight off both guys, and in the midst of a move sequence that he's doing with Francesco Akira, he just out of nowhere gets blasted with a hidden blade from a concealed Will Ospreay, and Ospreay picked up the 1-2-3. It was really kind of a cool inventive finish there.
Yeah, that's probably one of the nastiest sudden hidden blades I ever seen, because you just didn't see it coming. Literally, Ospreay came out of nowhere and drilled this guy right in the face with the hidden blade, and it was an awesome finish. So United Empire picking up the win there, getting some momentum going into their program with just 4 guys. Then in the semi-main event of the evening, we had Kazuchika Okada and Yo teaming up with Taguchi and Shota Umino, and they defeated the LIJ team of Bushi, Hiromu Sanada, and Tetsuya Naito. Umino hitting the Death Rider on Bushi once again to get the win here.
Yeah, and I mean, this was kind of a nice little proxy because obviously Shingo is going to be the next challenger for the IWGP title, so we've kind of got his unit representing him against Okada and friends. At the same time, there's the junior title feud going on between Yo and Hiromu, and those interactions were very good in this match. Great matches in the past, so that's something I'm kind of looking forward to, and Yo was looking very good in this match. And then finally, Naito and Umino, like in almost every match they've been in against one another, they just continue to shine and stand out against each other. And so I'm really looking forward to the match that's kind of coming up between those two guys, especially since it's going to be a main event.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really big moment for Umino, just kind of getting him on the right track to becoming a main event star here in New Japan Pro Wrestling. And I did notice, also I know Naito's a big star, but definitely seeing the crowd was more into Naito than they were Umino throughout this match. So I think it's definitely something that Umino's going to have to overcome in this program with Tetsuya Naito.
Also, I don't know if you noticed, but we did get brief interactions between Okada and Naito, and the crowd went crazy every time that happened. And obviously it's a classic combo in New Japan, but not fully convinced that there's not juice left in that, in that fruit to squeeze out.
Yeah, I think there's definitely, more room to do one more big matchup between those guys on a really big stage.
Especially the way they're setting up Naito, you just never know.
Yeah. Then the main event of the show was for the 2023 Provisional KOPW Championship in a MMA rules match. The Dragon Shingo Takagi was able to defend his provisional title, defeating the Great Okan by TKO 22 minutes and 37 seconds. So this was the MMA rules that Josh wanted everybody to vote for. Both guys had to wear gis to the ring, and you can only win by KO, TKO, or submission. So Josh, what do you think about this MMA rules match that you wanted so badly?
The funny thing is, I don't know why they keep calling it an MMA rules match. When was the last time that you saw someone wearing a gi in MMA? Like, it's probably been a good 15 years, maybe longer for most people. This didn't in any way reflect what I think of when I think of mixed martial arts or the UFC or, anything like that. Couple things that were kind of cool and interesting. So Great Okan came out with the entirety of the United Empire, and they did a spoof on the Gracie train. Are you familiar with this, Jeremy?
Yeah, I've seen that before.
Yeah, so they came out, all doing the fucking Gracie train thing, except for they called it on commentary the Okani train, which was fucking funny and kind of hilarious. These goofballs, and then Okan is wearing like a BJJ gi, and there are differences between different types of gi. And then Shingo came out with like his wrestling tights, but then a judo gi on, which was like fucking weird. But I was kind of digging the presentation. I thought it was really cool. Great Okan taped up his braid to the top of his head so it wouldn't get in the way. And then the match started, and it was very like technical, and these guys were working from like the collar elbow tie up sort of position like that you see in judo. And I thought it was starting off really cool, but then like some time was going, and it wasn't bad, but it wasn't fun or cool or interesting. It was undynamic offense. It was just like, just two guys going out there just kind of, I don't know, like I guess doing a quasi version of like what you might see in like a judo gym, essentially.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Yeah, this is kind of weird. I mean, like I said, it started off good. There's a lot of cool, like, judo throws, like gi throws, them trying to do like submissions with the gis. And I thought some of that was kind of cool, but I don't know. I felt for this type of match, it just went too long.
The match was way too long.
We saw like the amateur wrestling rules of Yano and Okan. They kept it short, like a traditional amateur wrestling matchup, and it was a ton of fun.
Yeah, I'm surprised this didn't have rounds. If you're going to call it an MMA match, it should have had rounds, most likely. It probably should have been capped like, it probably should have done like 3-minute rounds or something like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then I did think the groundwork, especially from Great Okan, was pretty impressive. And I thought that stuff was really good. And it showed that he was very technical. And but we've kind of seen his prowess when it comes to the ground game a lot over the past couple of years. Then they started getting into like the shenanigans with the outside interference. And then like LIJ had to come down and protect Shingo. And then we had all this like stuff going on between United Empire and LIJ and everything, and it just started feeling very House of Torture-ish, like to where I was like, oh, I don't know if I really need to be seeing this in an MMA fight. It's just getting kind of farcical.
Yeah, because it was like a lumberjack match too. So like, those guys were supposed to keep those guys in. Like at first, LJ wasn't out there, so United Empire, when like Okan was out, like they would give him time, a breather, and, like give him the fan with a towel and help him get back in slowly.
The other thing too is like, even though there was like a quote unquote sporting feel to the beginning of the match and everything, it was very slow. But the thing that I noticed right away, there's no strikes. Why? It's a mixed martial arts fight. Why are there no strikes? And then probably about midway through the match, and by midway, we're talking about 10 minutes into the match, Shingo starts using knees, and then so does Okan, and then they start going into like more pro wrestling type stuff. But it's like, if I'm fine that they were doing pro wrestling stuff, but it's like, you guys could have been doing cool pro wrestling, and then they were just kind of doing mid pro wrestling, and then the crowd wasn't reacting. It just felt very awkward.
Yeah.
And then by the end of it, like they were just stuck in this weird nebulous of like shenanigans, sometimes karate stuff, sometimes pro wrestling stuff. And then they did do a cool inventive finish where like out of nowhere, Shingo caught him, into a position where he got him up on his shoulders and then gave him the last of the dragon. And that looked pretty devastating. And then, but at the same time, he couldn't pin him. So they went into a double count out situation. And then he ran up, nailed the dude, put him in a gi choke, choked him. I thought the choke out situation at the end was really great. But like the only real action in this match was like the last 2 minutes. And it was a 22-minute plus match. It just wasn't good. It wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen. I've seen worse KOPW matches, but like that whole thing where last week I was saying Shingo should be like wrestler of the month, hands down, pretty easily. Like this put a big dent in that claim.
Yeah, and the weird thing, even on commentary, Kevin Kelly's like, I don't get why Shingo's continuing to like grapple this guy. Like there was no rules against striking or using pro wrestling moves. Like why is Shingo still like not using strikes and trying to wrestle this guy?
I'll tell you something. I thought on this night, and I don't usually say this, and I'm sorry to say it, it's probably the only time I've ever said it on this show, and I hope it's the only time I ever say it again. I thought Chris Charlton and Kevin Kelly sucked on this show. I didn't think that they were very good most of the time. And there was just like too much. I hate to say it this way, but let me just, without pulling any punches, I'll just be honest with you. There's too much J-cast type humor in the show. Like a lot of like talking about guys that were hunky, talking about like, 4 guys, 1 cup. And then like when they were covering this, just like a lot of like nonsense. I don't like that from this particular duo of commentators when I see them as being like one of the more competent sports-centric type of, I mean, sure, they have entertainment aspects, but it just felt like they were like out there riffing like no one was watching. Like it's not a new beginning in Nagoya. Like it's just some, like, I don't know. Like it's like 2016 and nobody's watching the Road to show. You know what I mean? It was weird. And I thought that they sucked on this particular match in general. Like it's your job, even though the match was not good, right? The match wasn't good. Like make no mistakes about it. Your job is to lie and tell us it's good and make it seem more epic than what we're actually seeing on the screen. But they were like, there was a point where like Kevin Kelly's like, I hate to tell you so, but we should have done the 30-minute, 30 count match.
Yeah.
All right. You're not supposed to say that. You are the commentator. And then, but they were out of their element because they're talking about like, there's better, MMA guys who could call this better. And it's like, you're not supposed to say that either. Like, just fucking call the action. Make it seem like this is a real struggle. You know what I mean? Like, try to cover for the deficiencies in the match, which, again, the match wasn't good, but I really do feel like the commentary was really bad too.
Yeah, I guess for me, like, I was more zoned in on what was happening in the match. But yeah, I did notice Kevin like saying, yeah, they should have done the 30 count match. I mean, I was thinking the same thing.
Most people would agree. Like, it's not like what he was saying was fake or false, but it's like, you don't say that. We say that. It's the job of shows like this who shit talk and say shit like that. It's not supposed to be the guy in commentary being like, oh, we shouldn't have done this.
Yeah.
I think that MMA can be like the idea of like, and it's not even supposed to be, I don't know, we're saying MMA. Karate. Okay, karate is really cool. Like there's a reason people love Cobra Kai. And it's because like they're out there doing cool shit and like beating each other's asses and stuff. That can be really cool. This match should have been much shorter, much more intense, and it would have been really cool if they're going out there throwing strikes, throwing each other around, working the gimmick. But it was just them like holding each other in the collar and elbow and trying to trip each other for like the first 10 minutes. And then the second half was just a bunch of shenanigans until they decided to go into high spots. Like this was not good. Like I've seen Inoki have better mixed MMA matches and most of those weren't good either. Like this sucked.
Yeah, this is kind of like a black eye on what's been happening with KOPW and Shingo's kind of, work to really elevate that title and say, it's Shingo and it's Great Okan. I mean, two great wrestlers. This should have been great, but it just wasn't. And it was unfortunate. But yeah, Shingo, he does retain the provisional KOPW championship.
They did a karate match, and Okan didn't throw a single karate chop.
Which he's known, what he does in regular matches.
Which is what he does in all. What are we doing here? This makes no sense. This was so weird. This was like two guys doing blood sport that had never done blood sport. Like, I guarantee you, if Filthy Tom Lawler had done this match, it would have been phenomenal. It would have been really funny and really intense, and he knows how to work and shoot at the same time. I don't think these guys got that. In fact, I'll tell you what, I don't think that I don't think Shingo, this was a good gimmick for him.
No, not at all. Yeah, it was kind of weird. And the whole thing, like they were mentioning on commentary, like Shingo should have been throwing more strikes. Shingo should have been trying to just pro wrestle this guy. It was a mixed martial art. Like, he should have been just using his pro wrestling, and then at certain points, get out wrestled by Okan. But he should have been throwing lariats and trying to do these big moves while Okan's like grabbing him up and getting him submissions.
You know what, the funny thing, that's pretty much the prototype of like what Inoki's matches were like. It was him using pro wrestling against martial artists and then prevailing. That's what this should have been. Yeah. It would have been much better.
It should have been more like a Shingo Zack Sabre match.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I definitely think they should have played in the gimmick and really like utilized the whole thing when he took so Shingo takes his jacket off halfway through the match. That should have been like a big moment. Like, he was getting his ass beat because he had the jacket on. He smartens up and takes it off, and it's like, oh,
right.
But they didn't do that. Like, I don't know. This thing was a big miss, and it really shouldn't. I don't think it was that difficult to have a good match with the gimmick. Like, it should have been pretty cool and pretty fun. And definitely shouldn't have gone over. It should have been sub 15 minutes.
Yeah, there's a lot that wrong that went here. But yeah, Shingo gets to win. Post match, he invites Okada out. He knows it's only fair since he interrupted Okada twice that Okada should come out here. He posed the idea of doing a double title match for the KOPW and IWGP with KOPW rules, but Okada kind of kindly turned him down and said, no, I'm not the kind of guy that wants to go after two belts. I can only focus on one belt, only on IWGP, and IWGP shouldn't be, contested under gimmicky KOPW rules. It should just be mano-a-mano, straight up pro wrestling match. So that's what we're going to do. And then Shingo was like, fine, if then I'm going to win and become the double champion. So
he also made remarks basically saying, like, I only want this belt. I have no need for two belts, which kind of felt like a shot back to the previous booking of like the IWGP/IC title shit.
Right.
It also kind of felt like a slight to Noah and the GHC thing. Like, this is the only title that matters. It's the only one I want. Why would I care about anything on the any other belts, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And I was like, he's saying he doesn't care about the GHC title or anything like that,
Yeah. So we have some Road to New Beginning shows coming up this week. So on Tuesday, January 24th in Corkin Hall, we'll have the Great Okan versus Ryo Oiwa, Jado and Master Wato versus Gato and Taiji Shimori, Aaron Henare and Francisco Akira versus Doki and Taka Michinoku. We'll have Goto, Ishii, Yoshihashi, and Oscar Lube versus all of TMDK, Tanahashi and Tenzan versus Phantasmo and Kenta, Taguchi and Yo versus Bushi and Hiromu, TJP and Will Ospreay versus Taichi and Yoshinobu Kanemaru, and then the main event will be Okada, Yano, and Umino versus Sanada, Shingo, and LIJ. And then the next day, January 25th, will also be from Corkin Hall, another Road to New Beginning show. We'll have Oscar Lube versus Aaron Henare, Toru Yano and Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Gato and Kenta, Master Wato and Togi Makabe versus Taiji Shimori and ELP, Yuto Nakashima, Yoshihashi, Tomohiro Ishii, and Hiroki Goto versus Kosei Vegeta, Shane Hayes, Mikey Nichols, and Zack Sabre Jr., TJP and Great Okan versus Taka and Kanemaru, Akira and Ospreay versus Doki and Taichi, Umino and Honma versus Sonata and Naito. And the main event will be Yo Taguchi Okada versus Bushi Hiromu and Shingo Takagi.
Bro, there were 5 other Road to New Beginning shows in between these two that you mentioned and then the upcoming New Beginning in Sapporo on February 4th. I didn't check New Japan World to see what the live viewing schedule was. So I thought we were watching all of them. I was like, fuck.
Bro, so did I. And I double checked the world schedules to make sure. And I only saw 2. I was like, yes.
I'm so relieved. Like, I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I think I marked down in my calendar. I was like, New Beginning Night 1, New Beginning Night 2, New Beginning Night 6, New Beginning Night 7.
Well,
like, oh my.
The thing that tipped me off, like night 3 was like in some like weird like little.
It's in like Chichiba or something like that.
Some little weird town. I was like, I've never seen that. I was like, where is this? And I was like, okay, it's not televised. This is a little house show.
I mean, let's be clear. New Beginning in Nagoya was basically a Road to show combined with a big main event. That literally should have been Road to New Beginning.
It should have, yeah.
Yeah. But that is those are the matches coming up in the shows between now and next week. Let's jump into New Japan Strong or New Japan of USA. So this past weekend, we had New Japan Strong Nemesis, Saturday, January 21st at 8 p.m. Eastern. On New Japan World, we had 3 matches of action. The first match of the evening, the West Coast Wrecking Crew, Jarrell Nelson and Royce Isaacs defeated C4, that's Cody Chun and Guillermo Rojas, 10 minutes and 37 seconds. Second match of the night, Kenta defeated QT Marshall, 12 minutes and 35 seconds. And I've got a feeling that what was that match called?
The Strong Survivor.
Yeah, so this is part of the same tapings. I've got to assume that the Strong Survivor match probably took place live for the live audience at the end of the show.
Mm-hmm.
But they're showing this one as though this happened after that match. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
So it's weird because on commentary, they're mentioning how Kenta's already the number 1 contender, but like people live in the audience hadn't experienced it that way. So it's kind of interesting. But yeah, Kenta defeats QT Marshall. And then the main event, we had the New Japan Strong Openweight Tag Team titles on the line as the Motor City Machine Guns, Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, successfully defended their title against Roppongi Vice, Rocky Romero, and Trent Beretta, 18 minutes and 12 seconds.
Yeah, second to last, New Japan Strong. Thought it was a pretty good show. Really liked the C4 team of Cody Chun and Guillermo Rojas. We've seen them in singles actions a lot. It was the first time that I think they've teamed up on Strong with their C4 tag team, which seems like a well-known team in the West Coast area because they were getting a lot of chants throughout this match. And
very popular during this taping.
Yeah, so fun matchup there with West Coast Wrecking Crew, but of course the established team of the West Coast Wrecking Crew got the win after there was a pretty nasty botch towards the end there. They were trying to do for like a double team move. But Isaacs ended up saving it, hitting a big German, and then Nelson was able to hit the elbow drop to get the win there. Kenta and QT Marshall, fun matchup here. You know, you had Kenta, even though Kenta's a heel, he was obviously the big New Japan star and a big fan favorite, and QT gets heat wherever he goes. So really fun matchup here. Towards the end, there was a ref bump, and Kenta brought the chair in, and QT hit a low blow, and kind of had this whole back and forth kind of cheating segment until Kenta hit the DDT on the chair to QT and hit him with the go to sleep to get the win and kind of build up momentum going into his Strong title match coming up at Battle in the Valley. And then the main event, Machine Guns versus Roppongi Vice. First time matchup, believe it or not, and this was an awesome main event here. Really great double team combos. Crowd was really into this matchup. Machine Guns kind of working a little bit heel towards the match here, and the crowd really getting behind Rocky and Trent Beretta. And at the end, yeah, the Machine Guns, their new tag finisher on Rocky to get the win. So yeah, really great showing here for Machine Guns versus Roppongi Vice.
In my opinion, easily one of the best tag team matches in the history of New Japan Strong. I thought this was an excellent tag team main event, and probably the best Strong open weight tag team title match to date.
Yeah, it was an awesome matchup. And yeah, I don't know what the future is of these titles or what,
Well, we have some news, Jeremy. Did you catch the backstage promos?
I did not.
So I went ahead and checked that out. And the West Coast Wrecking Crew, I'll keep it short, they eventually had a face-off with the Motor City Machine Guns. And it's not official, like they haven't posted on social media, but it's pretty much 100% official. West Coast Wrecking Crew will be challenging for the New Japan Strong Openweight Tag Team titles against the Motor City Machine Guns at Battle in the Valley on February the 18th.
Nice. So yeah, that should be a pretty good matchup there. Yeah, but
and I have to assume that if they are, whatever the future of these titles are, and I don't know if they're making them defunct or if they're going to continue in some other iteration beyond New Japan Strong, they're going to put the title on West Coast Wrecking Crew. They've kind of been like the key tag team for this division, and they've never held the belts. So probably like a last make good sort of feel good moment for that team.
Yeah. And so next Saturday, upcoming Saturday, the 28th, will be the last ever New Japan Strong episode. That will conclude the Nemesis Tour as well. And Kaito will take on Blake Christian. Mystico will take on Mysterioso. And then the main event will be the Strong Openweight title match. Fred Rosser defends against Peter Avalon. The winner will face Kenta at Battle in the Valley.
I'm kind of just chuckling to myself, like looking at this rundown. It's like Kita versus Blake Christian. All right, two guys that have never been to Japan. Mystico and Mysterioso, like a CMLL guy versus a guy that's never been to Japan. And then the title, Fred Rosser versus Peter Avalon, two guys that have never been to Japan. Like this is like 100% like different than what we saw when like New Japan Strong first launched.
Yeah.
And that's no slight. There's some great, I mean, all three matches are probably going to be really cool and really good. It's just like, damn, this is what a way to like send off New Japan Strong, I guess.
Yeah.
But let's jump into the news here. So Sakura Genesis this past week was announced that it will be returning in April on the 8th at Ryogoku Somo Hall. And the news we got here, full cheering crowd, which I think everyone's pretty happy about. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Also, there was a huge announcement today that, and we've talked about this on the show. We thought it was a pipe dream. We've heard mentions of it time and time again from Moromu. We didn't think it was happening. And now it is happening. And it's so much more than we could have ever fucking thought it was going to be. An inter-promotional junior heavyweight event is set to air on New Japan World Pay-Per-View. New Japan announced today that Hiromu Takahashi will produce the All-Star Junior Festival on Wednesday, March the 1st at Korakuen Hall in Tokyo, Japan. According to its announcement, tickets for the show are already on sale. Plus, the event will air for global audiences on New Japan World Pay-Per-View. All of Japan's largest men's promotions will contribute talent for the event, as well as CMLL from Mexico. The promotions that will be involved are as follows. There's over 20 promotions. We got 2AW, we got 666 Pro Wrestling, All Japan Pro Wrestling, Big Japan Pro Wrestling, CMLL, DDT, Tradition, Dragon Gate, Gambare, Glate, Just Tap Out, Kyosho Pro, Michinoku Pro, NJPW, Osaka Pro, Pancrase Mission, Pro Wrestling Basara, Pro Wrestling Freedoms, Noah, Secret Base, 01, Ryukyu Dragon Pro Wrestling. That's like a lot of, that's so many companies. Like,
dude,
so
I didn't know like half of those promotions existed.
So I know most of these promotions. Well, Pancrase Mission's not even a promotion. That's just like Hikaru Sato and like Minoru Suzuki. Like, it's just their like fight camp, but whatever. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I knew most of these companies existed. Have I ever watched like Kyushu Pro? No. I'm surprised they didn't get any Chaka Pro in here. Like, but yeah, we did have a question from MJ Does PR. He said, Hiromu's Junior Festival looks like it will have participation from many legit promotions, all the way down to the grimiest of Japanese indies. What is the strategic imperative for a show like this? Is it to showcase junior talent and help grow the general pro wrestling audience? A rising tide lifts all boats situation, or is it something different?
Yeah, I think, well, part of it's what we talked about earlier. When your promotion kind of does cool things that you can capitalize on, it kind of helps people bring eyes to your promotion, kind of create some extra buzz there and be like, oh yeah, New Japan's doing cool cross-promotion things. And then also, too, I think it's kind of that, rising tide lifts all boats, where, New Japan is the biggest promotion in the game. And if they can, really show that pro wrestling is alive and well in Japan, I think it's going to do great things for New Japan's business, and then it will trickle down to all these various promotions that are working. And also, too, I mean, can't confirm this, but I think selfishly, this is a way for New Japan to kind of scout the junior talent scene and see what's out there. One of the things that we've said, during the pandemic, and what we saw was, New Japan's junior division is heavily reliant on foreign talent. They're reliant on guys like Robbie Eagles and all those, guys they brought in from like Impact and some of those names that they bring in. It's over the years we've seen that it's very reliant on junior superstars coming in and facing off the few domestic stars they have. And it really got exposed during the pandemic when, the main guys, is pretty much just Hiromu, Desperado, Taiji Ishimori were kind of your top three domestic guys. And there wasn't really a ton of other guys that felt like stars or that were really built up. And so I could see this as New Japan's way to kind of see, all right, who's out here and who should we try to kind of poach, get into Super Juniors, and maybe really bolster up our domestic junior roster.
There's a lot to unpack here. I don't know if now is the time to really go into everything, because obviously we're going to be doing a preview show and a review show when this all does come to pass. But I do think that the amount of companies that will be represented is pretty noteworthy. I mean, I can't think of any other event that's had this much representation on it, which is pretty wild and does make me wonder what the actual card is going to look like. I think it's very exciting, though, top to bottom.
Yeah.
And as far as answering that question, I mean, I think you did a great job of sort of laying out what your thoughts are on it, Jeremy. I think I echo a lot of those same sentiments. The only other thing I would probably add is, in the 90s, when Liger and his wife came up with the idea of like the J Cup and kind of implementing all the outside juniors that sort of existed in Japanese wrestling, that led to a boom period for juniors in general across the board, whether that be in Michinoku Pro or, Kaientai Dojo or different places like that, or War. It wasn't just about New Japan. It was sort of that, what you mentioned there, MJ, like a rising tide lifts all boats. But at the end of the day, what was the synonymous name in Japanese wrestling when it came to juniors? We talked about it last week on the show. It's New Japan. They're the ones that presented the platform to get people aware of like Great Sasuke and Naniwa and like all these different people. And I think that that's what's going to happen, or like Super Dolphin, stuff like that. So I think that that's kind of what's going to happen here. It's going to create opportunities for juniors to work with one another from different companies, do business across the board, kind of expand. Obviously, I think at the end of the day, they're going to establish New Japan as a dominant force. But, when we talk about a forbidden door opening, I can't think of more of a forbidden door opening than this fucking forbidden door. And it makes all the sense in the world that it's Hiromu Takahashi is the one who's doing it. And people have complained about Hiromu being the main guy in the juniors. I think a lot of us just kind of need to put to bed for now the idea that he's going heavyweight. It doesn't seem to be that that's the case. So if he is going to be in the junior division, creating an opportunity for all these different promotions and talents to work with one another and to do cool, interesting things like this, this is beyond what anybody could have imagined. So I'm very, very much so looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Last bit of news here. So there's a special training camp that will take place in San Jose on Sunday, February 19th. Kushida is going to lead a pair of seminars on the day, giving wrestlers with some experience the chance to improve their game and learn from a certified junior heavyweight ace. So if you are a pro wrestler and you're listening and you're interested, I would highly recommend you make your way out to California for that seminar. Last 2 bits of news. Rocky Romero is the new CMLL World Historic Welterweight Champion. He defeated Volador Jr. in Arena, Mexico this past Friday night. That entire event was made available for free on YouTube, and you can watch that now. And from what I understand, I've been told, I haven't seen it yet, we're talking about a near match of the year contender between him and Volador Jr.
Yeah, I've been hearing rave reviews about this match.
Yeah, so I'm going to definitely watch this. If you haven't seen it, I would say go out of your way and catch it now before it gets taken off YouTube, which is definitely a possibility. But this title, you know, there's a lot of titles in Mexico, especially in CMLL, but there's one belt for a decade that has been associated with top star Volador Jr., and that's the former NWA World Historic Middle or Welterweight title. This is a guy that's held that for I think he's only not held it for a 200+ day period in the last decade. And he's defended it just to put it in context, there are times where guys will be champion for years and defend 2 or 3 times. He's had title reigns where he's defended this belt 16, 11, I think he's got close to 30-something title defenses cumulative between his 3 reigns. So the idea that they took the belt off of him and put it on Rocky, nothing against Rocky. Rocky's, our good friend on the show, but I don't think anybody expected Volador to drop the title to Rocky Romero by any measure, because he's only ever dropped it to La Sombra, and I think he dropped it one time to who's the guy from the Kingdom?
Matt Taven.
He dropped it to Matt Taven briefly, and he dropped it to La Sombra. So this is his 3rd time losing the title, and he dropped it to Rocky. So I definitely want to catch that match. I'm sure we're going to be talking about it here for Excursion Match of the Week here in the next couple weeks or sometime. So, yeah, check that match out. Very glad. Congratulations, Rock. And then finally, Sunday, February 19th, live in Southampton 22, Will Ospreay will be taking on Leighton Buzzard for Rev Pro.
Yeah, don't know who that is, but I guess Will Ospreay. He's starting from the bottom.
What are you talking about? You don't know Leighton Buzzard? God, supposed to be a wrestling analyst.
Ospreay starting at the bottom, from Rev Pro. He's going to take on, the very openers to work his way back up to the main event.
He's going to walk in and he's started from the bottom, and I guess I'm here.
He's going to face the Brooklyn Brawler.
Yeah. Leighton Buzzard. That sounds like one of the characters from The Fiend.
Yeah. All right, we have a few questions here that we'll run through, and then recommended match of the week. So Hawaiian Punch BB says El Lindemann recently dropped his G-Rex championship to former Dragon Gate wrestler Kaito Ishida. What's baffling is that he lost the title to Ishida on a smaller show when he just beat Ishida on a bigger show very recently. Do you think this means that New Japan has plans for El Lindemann and wanted to free him up for more dates?
It could be possible based on the indications you've given. I don't know that much about it. I do think that there was a concern growing amongst the fan base that there was no one left in Glate that could beat El Lindemann, because he'd already successfully beat almost every top star, and it was going to take someone from outside to come in and credibly defeat him for the title for things to continue. And obviously it didn't go that way, but that's something that I heard people saying time and time again. So they went a different way and went with one of their talents, which, a defector from Dragon Gate, Ishida. But I haven't heard anything, but I wouldn't be surprised if, maybe he did have intentions to come here.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see them doing that. I feel like he's made a great impression in Super Juniors and Super Junior Tag League. I can definitely see them wanting to use him more. So, yeah, maybe that's part of the reason why he dropped the belt there. Also asked if Minoru Suzuki could merge his 2 new trios teams together, would Suzuki Gun 2.0 be your favorite stable? A stable of Suzuki, Naruki Doi, Hokuto Omura, El Esperado, and Ren Narita sounds awesome.
I don't really follow. Again, I think he's teaming with Doi and Amori, in All Japan, I think, right?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. I know Naruki Doi from he's like a Dragon Gate guy, right?
Yeah. Then wasn't he like on Ring of Honor when they did some of those crossover shows?
Yeah. Like back in the day.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. I don't really know Hakoto Amori, to be honest. So I would rather just if this is the like fantasy route we're going, I'd rather just have Suzuki-gun.
Yeah.
Not just 4 guys.
Then he said some fight talk. How do you feel about some of the domestic violence caused by these fighters recently? Gervonta Davis striking a woman and the woman walking back on her accusations. Phil Baroni murdering his girlfriend in Mexico. Dana White slapping his wife and the media just kind of brushing it aside.
Pretty loaded. I didn't catch anything about the Gervonta Davis situation. Obviously, we don't condone that sort of like domestic violence. So that's not good if that's the case, but I didn't hear anything about it. Obviously, I don't know. I don't know what there is much to discuss here. Like Phil Baroni, he murdered his girlfriend and it's not good. And obviously Dana White slapped his wife and people did brush it aside. That's not good. Also, I will say Dana White slapped her husband. That's not good. Domestic violence on either side of the table is not good,
Right. And then TBS, continues to put on, right after they put on Slap Fight in the opening shot, Dana White saying, it's really great when you can just, slap the crap out of somebody you don't like.
It's not in good taste. Honestly, everything, I'll tell you right now, I don't fucking like Slap Fight. I kind of thought that maybe, I've seen some slap fighting just a little bit in the past. Obviously not enough to be fully familiar with it, but some of the stuff I've seen has not been as visceral or violent as what was presented on that TBS show. I see people eat the slap and they're flinching or clubbing and there's all these weird technical rules going back and forth, blah, blah, blah. But on that TBS show, people were getting murked bad, really bad. And I was like, oh my God, this is the worst. I turned it off halfway through the show. I shouldn't even kept it on that long, but it was disgusting. It's one of the most grotesque things. Someone will die. That girl with the mohawk that got knocked out and she rolled, she could have broken her neck. She could have died right there. It was so that whole thing is fucking gross.
Yeah, I didn't watch any of it. I turned off TBS as soon as Dynamite was over. I think it's pretty ridiculous that TBS will allow somebody who had a domestic violence case for slapping air their Power Slap show, but not let AEW do a Jay Briscoe tribute show. I think that's pretty ridiculous. So, yeah, kind of dumb.
Yeah.
He also asked, what do you think about the UFC not re-signing Francis Ngannou?
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that wanted to do outside projects, and he also was wanting to get paid more, and he was also wanting other things that should realistically, although it's not part of their business plan, they should be there. He wants health insurance for the fighters. He wants them to be able to get sponsorships outside of just Venom or whoever, or Reebok or whoever it is that does their uniforms nowadays. And he was trying to get unionization type of deals for these guys, or lobby, not unionization, but he wanted them to have advocates to fight for them when there's a dispute between them and the company. These are all things that, Endeavor and that group do not want to occur or exist. So, they tried to spin it in the media that this guy doesn't want to fight and that he's afraid. Come on, Francis Ngannou, the scariest man that has ever walked or fought in combat sports, is afraid. Let's get real. But it is very interesting because, we're getting a fight between Cyril Gane and John Jones, which is very interesting. And I'm very excited for it. But the truth of the matter is, it doesn't matter who wins, because they will not, in the eyes of the most of the public, really be considered the true heavyweight champion. Everybody knows that the baddest man walking the planet is Francis Ngannou, and he's going to go elsewhere And I don't think that this has happened since like the last 2 times where the world champion wasn't in the UFC was like in the heyday of like Fedor Emelianenko. And prior to that, when Randy Couture walked out of the company as the champion and went to fight in Japan. So, yeah, it's very interesting. But
yeah, and I know there's a lot of potential for Ngannou doing a boxing match with the Gypsy King, Tyson Fury. There's a big boxing payday he can get there, and there's a lot of rumors, people saying, yeah, he wants this boxing payday.
That's on the table. There's also a Deontay Wilder fight on the table potentially as well, which is like the 2 hardest strikers in the history of their collective sports fighting each other. Whew, that's scary. I do think that Francis Ngannou will get probably knocked out by either of those guys, though.
Yeah. Next question here from Les Commission 7252. Have you guys seen the would love to see in the G1 trend on the NJPW Reddit page? It had guys like Bryan Danielson, Chris Benoit, Kaito Kiyomiya, Tyson O'Neil, and more. Yeah,
it just kind of became like a trolly thing. It was kind of funny, though.
Yeah, I mean, it started off serious and got super trolled. Next question here from MCW 111986. Are they rerunning the Naito vs. Jericho feud of Omega and Ospreay? Jericho beat Naito convincingly for the IC belt and then faced an LJ member Io for the belt before Naito got the win back. Omega Ospreay has started similarly, and Cobb looks next for Omega.
I think there's some similarities there. I don't think it's the exact same booking, though.
Yeah, kind of similar, but yeah, not quite the same. But I mean, who knows? I mean, Omega could run through more Empire guys or have more challengers before Ospreay even gets another crack. Grunty Dodd says, after 3 years, I finally got COVID. What tournament from before 2019 should I watch while I'm stuck at home?
Ooh, that's a great question. I don't know.
How about 2018 G1?
Probably. I think the 2017 and the 2018. Actually, the 2014 G1 is incredible as well. I don't know. Go to Cage Match.
And I hope you feel better, Grunty Dots. Okay, 890 says Desperado is booked for a Noah show. Do you think Despy is going to be freelancing a bit more this year?
That must be why the No Saba Run Guy thing happened at the end of that show.
Maybe I got to set that booking up.
Probably, because I don't know. I don't even what is. I haven't seen anything about Desperado working Noah. Did you see anything about that?
No, I was looking. I didn't see like any match graphics or official announcement. It must have been posted somewhere, but I haven't been able to see what match it is.
Seems like the door's open for all these guys to do more outside booking dates, which is pretty cool regardless.
Yeah. Slam Lord 69. If the loser leaves town, stipulation in Jay White's upcoming match against Hikuleo is more than a short-term storyline and has actual ramifications, is there any concern with the status of Jay White and NJPW? If Jay leaves, how bad is that for New Japan? If he stays, what needs to happen for the company to make the most out of having one of the top wrestlers in the world who has no clear direction right now?
Pretty simple, guys. If you've been watching New Japan for any length of time, you'll know that stars go and they build new stars in their place. If he left, would it be a hit to some degree? Sure. Absolutely. Would there be hungry talent waiting in the wings, ready to fill his shoes? Absolutely. And if you're saying to yourself, he's so great, can't be done, well, it's been done many times before. Shinsuke Nakamura left. New Japan was fine. Prince Devitt left. New Japan was fine. AJ Styles left. New Japan was fine. Kenny Omega left. New Japan was fine. So I'm not that worried about it. But do I think that if he stays, this company really needs to think long and hard about how they utilize their talent and what they want to do with the guy? Absolutely. Because I think Jay White's incredible, but they haven't used him like he's been incredible in quite a while. And if they're going to keep him, you should use him better.
Yeah, there needs to be a big shift in his presentation and the character if he does end up staying around. And I absolutely agree with you. If he does end up leaving New Japan and going to WWE or AEW, it's going to be just fine. The pipeline is loaded up with young talent. You got Umino and Narita fighting for their spots right now. You have LA Dojo guys waiting in the wings, Coughlin, Gabe Kidd, Connors, all those guys. You have the pipeline, the Fale Dojo that's being built up. You have a ton of guys from Impact partnerships, all the domestic partnerships. Like, there's so much talent available to New Japan right now. I think it's going to be very easy for them to, fill that hole and kind of keep the machine rolling on. Next question here. Let's question 7252. What was the best outcome from the start of the 2020 to the current product from today? The biggest to me is Yoshihashi rejuvenating his career and becoming one of New Japan's favorites. Alongside that is Will Ospreay, in my opinion, being the top gaijin wrestler in Japan. The Never Six-Man belt being defended more and having recognition.
I don't know. I mean, that's there's 2020 to 2023. There's a lot that's occurred between now and then, and there's things that were great and then turned not so great. There were things that were not so great that turned around to being great. I mean, I could point to, like, say, Kota Ibushi, for example, who's no longer with the company, and that whole story turned out to be pretty terrible. But for a little while there, he would have been one of the highlights of that period of time. I think for me, probably the elevation of particular talents stand out the most to me, like El Desperado or Shingo Takagi, or Will Ospreay, just to name a few.
Yeah, for me, it would definitely be the elevation of Will Ospreay and Shingo Takagi into the main event scene. Those guys pretty much carried New Japan on their backs during the pandemic and had incredible matchups in a clap crowd environment. Last question here. Actually, I think this is more of a statement here from Dr. Larry the Dark. He says, I want to be the guy to say Sasha is a bad promo and just an okay wrestler, but she is shit compared to the top card in high-speed girls. Sasha lacks the speed, physicality, and technique to make it in Stardom. She's lucky to have come up in a world where her simps go hard online. I just want to say,
Dr. Lariat in the Dark, you don't know shit about wrestling. I don't have much more to say. I mean, like, he does have some valid points, but, like, you negate everything that you're saying by saying that Sasha is a bad wrestler. It's just not true, you know? Like, anyone that has ever wrestled or watched, like, anyone that's ever wrestled will tell you, like, she's fantastic. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Now, am I saying that she is the best wrestler in the world and as good as those girls in Stardom? No. Do I think that there's probably a learning curve involved, especially when it comes to working different styles? Absolutely. And do I share my concerns about everything revolving Sasha when it comes to New Japan and her and business and, you know, Stardom and all that? Like, there's a lot to kind of unpack there, and we're running in a long show. So, I mean, I don't think now is the time to have that conversation. We've alluded to some of it, but, like, I'm sorry, bro. Like, when you tell me that Sasha is just an okay wrestler, that's not true. Like, and if you think she's just an okay wrestler, you need to have your eyes checked. Sasha Banks, for better or for worse, no matter how you feel about her, no matter what you think, is bar none the single greatest female talent in the history of North America. Period.
Yeah, I mean, through her matches, obviously in NXT, obviously that really brought the rise of the quote-unquote women's revolution in WWE, and I would say, you know, the kind of rise of people kind of changing their tune on women's wrestling in North America. And yeah, Sasha is absolutely incredible talent, and to be able to do what she did in the WWE environment to show you how great she is. And like you're saying, yeah, maybe she's not as great as, you know, Mayu Iwatani or Kairi or whoever, but she has...
It's a different style.
Yeah, and she's going to have to acclimate to that style, but based off of her previous work, I don't see why she shouldn't be able to do that.
Right. I mean, she does have, like, issues with injuries and stuff like that, and that might come into play here. Like, do I think she's about that life? Do I think she's going to, like, take head kicks from Shuri and like, you know, get fucking busted by these girls. Like, no, I don't think she's about that. But is this a person that's, you know, really passionate about wrestling and like wants to put their best foot forward, you know, and all that? Absolutely. We didn't even get into that promo. We probably should have talked about it on this episode. We don't have time now, but like that promo, my God, that promo video. Not only is that bad on her, and we'll talk about it next week, but like not only was that bad on her, that's bad on New Japan's production team. That was a pre-tape promo. They can't fucking fix a pre-tape promo. What are we doing? Whoever put that video together for her needs to be fired, and she needs help, bro. She needs help. She is a bad promo.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right, let's close.
But also, Dr. Lariat in the Dark, you don't know shit.
Let's close with our recommended match of the week here. So last week for the recommended match of the week, I recommended Kenny Omega versus Nakajima from the G1 2016. What do you think about that match?
It was pretty good. Considering the talent involved, it's kind of like one of those, wow, this is pretty cool. I never knew it happened, but it's not quite the level that you would expect considering who was involved in it. But then again, it's sort of a crossroads match. You're getting Nakajima as he's this like young future ace for Noah. He just signed with the company. There's all this buzz behind him, but he's sort of in that young up and coming, even though he'd been wrestling for a while and he was like a well-known commodity for Noah, he's this young up and coming guy. And then you've got Kenny Omega, who's deep in the midst of his goofy leader of Bullet Club kind of like persona. You know what I mean? Like
right.
He's
deep in the cleaner, anime
deep
villain.
in the cleaner era. So a lot of it was Kenny Omega getting heat and building up for a comeback from Nakajima, and most of the match was pretty unremarkable, but it's like a 10, maybe 12-minute match, but the last few minutes are dynamic. They start going into crazy sequences, really cool stuff, and then finally, boom, just like that, one-winged angel, and it's over. So I think these guys could have a fantastic match in the future. This wasn't quite that. It was sort of like, you know, middle of the road G1 night. And as I mentioned previously, this wasn't like Omega. This is where the legend of Omega as a heavyweight did come from, but it's really built off the back of the last two nights of his G1. He didn't have like a stellar 2016 G1. His G1s after that are like where he was like having out of this world performances. This one wasn't really that, but I'd still go like 3.5 on the match. It was good. And I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, I never knew it happened. And I did, but for many people probably are like, I never knew it happened. And if you're fans of the guys, you might want to check it out.
Nice. Then for excursion match of the week, recommended Tom Lawler versus Shibata from the Inoki Bombay show that happened last month. And check this out. And, you know, it was I don't know what the official rules were, but it was kind of worked as like a, you know, MMA kind of shoot style match.
It's a UWFI styles rules match. I didn't know the official rules either, but I assume like in UWFI you had points, and if you grabbed, you would lose, like you had a certain number of points and you would lose those points if you either got dropped or if you grabbed the ropes. And you could lose the match by losing all your points, or if the match went to a time limit draw, whoever had less points was the loser. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I don't know how many they had. I just know like grabbing the ropes or getting knocked down is really bad. So
yeah, and there was at one point in the match where the ref threw a yellow card out on Shibata.
Yeah,
when he was doing
where you lose, like in kayfabe, I think you lose like 15 or 25% of your purse because you cheated.
So yeah, so it was a very like grapple heavy match, and I mean I thought the grappling was good. There was a lot of great like submission exchanges, and I know that this was, you know, not a traditional pro wrestling match, but for me, like I see Shibata and I see Tom Lawler, and like I want to see, you know, more pro wrestling stuff. I want to see these guys, you know, especially after seeing Shibata wrestle Orange Cassidy, like I want to see these guys do some more pro wrestling, do some more suplexes, kicks, and stuff like that. And there was some of that in here. You know, there were several PKs. Lawler did do that big kind of Uranagi style maneuver that he does. He got a near knockout on that. But yeah, it was more of, you know, if you're a big, I think, you know, grappling kind of fan, this is definitely a match for you. There's a lot of great, again, grappling exchanges, near submissions between these guys. But in the end, Shibata was able to get the victory over Tom Lawler.
Yeah, I liked this a lot. I think today there's almost nobody that's better at working while shooting as Tom Lawler is. And Shibata's not far from him. And I thought that this was really compelling, but, probably not enough juice to, like, give it an excursion match of the year, like, recommendation or anything like that. But for what it was, I mean, I've seen shoot style matches that were far less than this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where would you go, like, ratings-wise in this one? I know it's tough to rate that.
I don't know. I guess maybe like 3.5, I guess.
Yeah, I'd probably go like 3 3/4. So, yeah. Cool. So I will be doing the recommended match of the week, and I'm just kind of missing Fantastica Mania. So, I'm thinking maybe we go back. I gave you a shoot style match last week. Maybe this week I give you some lucha. So we're gonna go to the main event of New Japan Presents CMLL Fantastica Mania 2017, Night 7. The main event, Volador Jr. versus Ultimo Guerrero.
Nice.
And this received 4.5 stars from Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter.
Nice. That should be fun to check out, and a nice little tease to get us ready for Fantastica Mania next month. Then for the excursion match of the week, gonna go with the TNT title match that happened last Wednesday on AEW Dynamite. Darby Allin defending the title against Kushida.
Yeah, I saw this, but I need to rewatch it because I was a little bit inebriated when I watched it. So I remember liking it, but I don't remember how good it actually was. So maybe I'll check that out again, and looking forward to it because the match was pretty great.
Yeah, it was an awesome matchup. Well, that's going to wrap things up for us here. Next week, we will be back to review these Road to New Beginning shows. I believe we'll be probably previewing New Beginning in Sapporo. So if you enjoyed today's show, please consider making a donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure you connect with us on social media. On Twitter, the show is at KI Strong Style. You can follow the network at Social Suplex. You can follow me at Jeremy L. Donovan on Facebook. We're facebook.com/Social Suplex. Also find us in the Wrestling Squared Circle Facebook group, facebook.com/group/Wrestling Squared Circle. On Instagram, we're at Social Suplex. On Reddit, I am the Pro Black Guy. Josh is Keeping It Strong Style. You can email me, Jeremy at socialsuplex.com, and check out all the other shows that we have here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd. The Grave Consequences, hosted by Caleb and Maserati. All Things Elite, hosted by Floyd and Austin. The AEW Match Guy podcast, hosted by Sir Sam. And the Great Match Generator, hosted by Danny. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. And we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Ichiban.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.
The Venture X card from Capital One gives you premium travel benefits, perfect for seeing Taylor Swift The Eras Tour. Presented by Capital One. Ooh, I do love her. Earn 5 times miles on flights and 10 times miles on hotels through Capital One Travel.
Enjoy your stay in Suite 13.
Whoa, 13? That's Taylor's lucky number. The Venture X card from Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
92% of households that start the year with Peloton are still active a year later.
92% because of a bike?
Not just bikes. We also make treadmills and rowers.
Oh, let me guess, for elite athletes only, right?
Nope. It doesn't matter if you're an avid exerciser or new to working out. Peloton can help you achieve your fitness goals. 92% stick with it. So can you. Try Peloton bikes, tread or row risk-free with a 30-day home trial. New members only. Not available in remote locations. See additional terms at onepeloton.com/home-trial.